zombie was still trying to get her.
Okay.
The zombie will try
I
to get
see you're a
her.
little stubborn on this one, my friend. I'll tell you what. Do you really think holding a flare would stop the Snyder zombie from just tackling you? The answer is no,
You're
it
right on
wouldn't.
that.
It wouldn't slow it
Yeah, yeah,
down.
yeah.
But not too long ago, I published a video comparing Zack Snyder's 2004 remake of Dawn of the Dead to George Romero's 1978 zombie classic. And in that video, I reached a conclusion that is often considered to be blasphemous in certain circles of the zombie community. No doubt, I got quite a few rabid fans in the comment section who attempted to rip me a new one over my seemingly contrarian position. I mean, when I conducted an unscientific poll, most people did support my view. Despite this being the case, I still got myself into a few arguments in the comments section. And for the first time ever, someone who said they were willing to debate me actually agreed to debate me and followed through on it. And you know what? I gotta be honest, this individual earned my respect immediately. That being said, after a few days of scheduling, we agreed to a simple and rather informal debate format. Now, my opponent insisted on bringing judges to the debate, judges whose actual credentials I didn't really bother to confirm. And as such, he got to bring in two hand-picked judges from a Discord group he belonged to. I, on the other hand, just got a friend of mine who's got zero dogs in our fight. As in, my friend hasn't really seen either film since he was a child, nor does he care all that much for them. The result is the debate you're about to see. Now, here's another disclaimer. My awesome opponent is not a native English speaker, yet he spoke the language better than many Americans. Like me, he admits he's a better writer than an orator. And given the time zone differences and given my real-world job's uncanny ability to make me work late into the night, I got to participate in this debate while being nearly sleep-deprived. But trust what I say, it was a fun experience that I cannot wait to share with y'all. Now, here's a quick breakdown of this non-academic debate format. The debate will be broken down into 4 rounds. In each round, we debated Romero's film and then Snyder's film. We also automatically agreed to grant the 5th round, covering the legacies of both films, to Romero's movie. Each speaker would then have 5 minutes to present an argument, at which point both debaters would have an informal back and forth for some time. At the end of each round, the judges would score our performance, and at the very end, a winner would be determined. With that being said, I now invite you to enjoy our discussion.
All right, so we are officially starting debate. Gold, you're going first. You got 5 minutes. Begin.
Alrighty. So for this debate, gotta admit to the audience, I'm a much better writer than I am an orator, so I'm probably not going to be putting in my absolute best foot forward in this debate, which is a good thing for my opponent. But I do have a ton of notes, so I'm definitely going to be using them. And so for the first round of this debate, we're going to be talking about which movie's Undead is the best. And I think it's absolutely clear to me that the remake, Snyder and Gunn's Dawn of the Dead, has much better zombies. So we're going to start off talking about the Romero zombies first, and then we'll move on to the Snyder zombies. So my opening statement for the Romero zombies is actually just pretty simple. These are slow shamblers that are noticeably slower than the Walking Dead zombies, including the ones after season 2. These undead freaks have poor motor skills, like the one that flipped over a railing and fell into the pool or pond inside the Monroeville Mall. There was one where one of the characters ran by the zombie. He spun in a circle like a Beyblade and then fell flat on his ass. And, they're not really numerous in quantity either. They were casually manhandled by Roger and Peter with suboptimal striking techniques. And I can say something about that. I took kickboxing, and those were not good strikes. They're literally scared of open flames, like when Francine turned on a flare. And she was able to keep a zombie at bay with a flare. I've never really seen that. But then again, it's been a while since I've seen Night of the Living Dead. As you should know, I've only ever seen Dawn of the Dead once. But literally, you can hold back a zombie with a flare. They had pies thrown in their face. They had their wallets and jewelry stolen in broad daylight. We saw rednecks out there throwing a tailgating party while they were using the undead as a shooting gallery in an open field. It didn't seem like society was collapsing because of these things. We know the Zeds can't really climb serious obstacles. They can't shatter windshields. They literally struggle to get past thin wallpaper, the little facade that Peter and Roger built to hide their little stairwell. It took them a
Oh
minute
yeah,
to
yeah.
get
That
through
that
that.
wall.
And they're almost as bad as the Shaun of the Dead zombies with regards to grappling or grappling people. I mean, you just look at how the zombies failed to bite or rip apart Roger in the department store during a tussle on the ground, or how a zombie failed to bite or rip apart Flyboy on the ground at the municipal airport. And crazily enough, Roger and Steven had their backs exposed during these little wrestling sessions with the undead, which is literally what you don't want to do in grappling, and they still didn't get bit or lacerated. And then if these Snyder's super zombies, if these were Snyder super zombies during the tussle, these guys would have gotten bit. I will say, however, that the Romero zombies have two distinct advantages over Snyder's undead, right? Being their short term memory, like when the zombified Steven led a small horde to the hidden stairwell, and also the fact that the Romero undead are kind of like the Walking Dead's wildfire virus. Well, they're clearly the inspiration for that. As in, no matter how you die, so long as your brain's intact, you'll still turn. But these advantages don't really make up for the countless shortcomings of Romero's pitifully slow shamblers. They're about as slow as molasses. So, as long story short, for me, Romero's undead just aren't credible as a threat so long as you don't remain complacent. Like, the only zombies that were a threat to me were the little kids who came sprinting out of that closet straight towards Peter at the airport. And this is a real problem for me because the film is supposed to be a zombie horror film and a social commentary film, although Romero tries to have it both ways. He likes to say it's also a satire. Either way, part of that equation isn't working. It's the horror element, right? The zombies are not dreadful to me. They're not scary. They're not creepy. They make me laugh. So that's my opening statement for why I think the Romero zombies just aren't it. We'll talk about the Snyder zombies once we conclude the Romero zombie part of the Undead.
All
So,
right.
so you are saying that
Hang on.
the
So,
Romero
Gold,
zombies aren't
before
scary.
you
Oh, oh, oh,
begin,
oh, wait. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
you need to be timed, just as he was.
Okay,
All right.
I'm sorry
So
about it.
you have five
All right.
minutes. Begin.
Okay, it's my turn now.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Okay, you say the Romero zombies are less aren't as scary because they're not as powerful. They're just weak and uncoordinated. Is that what you said? Correct me if I'm wrong.
There's quite a few things involved in that. You could say that they're not really that strong. They're not fast. They're not very coordinated. They're not numerous in numbers. They have piss poor motor skills. I can light a fire and that'll actually scare them. They're slower than the Walking Dead zombies. I mean, there's a lot of things I mentioned. The fact that when they were grappling two people on the ground and those people had their backs exposed to them, the single weakest thing you could do during a grappling situation, and they still couldn't get a bite or laceration on either Steven or Roger. That to me, they're almost as bad as the Shaun of the Dead zombies.
Okay, while I do agree that the Romero zombies on the earlier stages are very uncoordinated, they definitely are lacking in in coordinating their bodies and stuff because they're very uncoordinated, as you say. But the saying that they're physically weak is kind of a false misconception because as we can see that these very same zombies can break through barriers, rip humans apart with their bare hands, and that's already in the Dawn of the Zombie film. I'm only using the film itself, and we've seen them rip limbs apart. We've seen them rip intestines, rip open your stomach like that with their bare hands, and which would be which shows a lot more force, it requires a lot more force to do something like that. And also, using the feats from Night of the Living Dead, Cooper said that these very same zombies toppled their car over, which means that these zombies aren't very weak. It's just that some of the zombies are inconsistent. Some of them can know how to actually properly use their strength and stuff like that. So that means they're still very much a threat. It's just that they're slow and some of them are uncoordinated, but they do have the potential to be stronger and much more coordinated because it's even shown in the film that Eventually, they're gonna get stronger. It's even stated by a priest in the film that they're also gonna get stronger. Let me second. I'm gonna get a statement from the film itself. Wait a second.
Go ahead, take your time. You can account for that on the time if you need to.
You have 2 minutes remaining.
Well, you can always give him
Okay,
a
okay.
little extra time, you know.
Wait a second.
No worries. No worries.
Is specifically in the scene where they're talking to the priest in the original. The priest states that these zombies will eventually get stronger. That just means they're eventually going to be much a bigger threat. Which and the Dawn of the Dead has a time skip where we see that the society did eventually collapse. This just means that the zombies are indeed getting stronger. They're getting more coordinated and they're getting smarter. That which is very much explained throughout the entire Romero lore that the zombies have a lot of potential to be stronger, and that's why I'm saying that they're still very much a threat, and they're even much stronger than early on in the Snyder zombies because Snyder zombies can die from fire, which is shown in the film itself. They even use that. They even used fire on the parking lot, right? CJ used. No, it wasn't CJ. It was Michael. I remember.
Yeah, Michael and
Threw
CJ
he
together.
showed
Yeah.
yeah. They threw fire on those zombies and they eventually died. Meanwhile, Romero zombies eventually moved on to get out of their fear of flames, but they don't actually die from fire. They just fear it. However, they can move on from that fear. However, this just means that these zombies will eventually get more powerful, and it is also shown in the film, Dawn of the Dead. Near the class where there's a time skip and stuff. I rest my case. That's all for now. Sorry for
No need
being
to
stuttering
apologize.
because English is not my first language.
Well,
So
I'm
that's
telling
why.
you right now, you speak better English than some of my countrymen, so you don't need to don't need to apologize. Um, I do have some questions for you though.
Okay, okay.
So the first thing that struck out to me is you're mentioning their ability to rip shit apart. I agree with you on that. I mean, it's clearly shown in the film. If they can somehow manage to grab you, and if there's enough of them pinning you down, you're cooked. It's game over. You're fucking dead, right? My only issue with that is that this strength of theirs, at least in the movie, because this is what we're talking about, right? We're talking about Dawn of the Dead, and
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
understand you mentioned their potential, but that potential was not actualized in the film. If we were talking about Land of the Dead or something, then that would make sense. But in the film, these shamblers, for all of their grip strength, they couldn't even get past a thin paper wall. Like we're talking about very thin wood used to basically prop up what was essentially newsprint with paint on it. And it took like at least, what, 5 or 6 of them to get past that fake wall? Whereas the Snyder zombies, the first one in the movie, jumps on the hood of a car and just one shots a windshield. I don't know,
It
man.
didn't exactly one shot a windshield actually because I've checked the scene myself. They just cracked it, but they didn't actually
That's
their
still
fist
that's
actually
still a
didn't break
better
through.
striking feat than any of the Romero zombies. But I'll give you one better. That same zombie headbutt straight through a wooden door, went clean through it, didn't even struggle. So you're talking about potential. I'm talking about actuality, right? What's actually shown. And gripping strength, as great as it is, it doesn't really matter if they can't grab you. It takes multiple of these zombies to actually rip. Because I haven't seen a single example in that film where you had one zombie pull a Dale, like in The Walking Dead, where one zombie ripped his stomach open by itself. No, every scene where somebody was ripped to shreds involved multiple zombies. Aside from that, when it was a one-on-one tussle, they couldn't bite anybody when their backs were exposed. They couldn't rip into them. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's just like the Shaun of the Dead zombies. Shaun of the Dead zombies are terrible, but I mean, they ripped, the adult discount-looking Harry Potter, aka David. They ripped him into shreds. And yeah, that's a pretty strong feat, but I think we can all agree the Shaun of the Dead zombies are a joke. And you also mentioned fire. I think it depends on the temperature of the fire, right? Because we know, canonically speaking, Molotovs don't work on the Snyder Undead. I mean, maybe you might know this because it's been a minute since I've seen Night of the Living Dead. I haven't seen that since I was like basically in middle school. But has anybody actually lit a Romero zombie in the first two films with diesel? Because diesel burns at a much higher temperature than a Molotov or a simple fire caused by a flare.
No, the zombies have never been shown to actually been hit by by fire, but we do know that they can ignore the damage on them because we've seen in Night of the Living Dead they managed to ignore the flames and just get the flashes from what was their name? Judy and Tom. Yeah, the couple that died on the fire. They actually ignored the flames and get their flesh to eat them.
But
Meaning they can ignore damage from fire.
yeah, but so could the Snyder zombies unless the fire was hot enough, right? And so I'm just asking,
Yeah,
how hot was that fire that you're referencing?
it was a car fire. The car exploded, and it was also near a gas pump. It was near a gas pump.
Okay, well, I'll give you that. That's a legitimate feat. I'll give you that. They can handle fire. But why are some of them scared of flares?
Here, I'm also showing. Flare has fire. They're afraid of that.
So they can tank the
Even
fire,
a
but they're
small
still
fire.
scared of it.
Yeah, I think Romero did that because to reference Frankenstein because Frankenstein fear fire. That's the reference.
Well, I guess that makes a great reference, but that doesn't make the zombie any better in this case. I mean, even Shaun of the Dead zombies aren't scared of fire.
Yeah, they may be scared of fire, but if there's human being or flesh right in front, they will ignore it and will try to
They didn't do
take
that
you
with
take you
Francine.
apart. No, no, that is not exactly true because that zombie was trying to cover its face to try to get to Francine when she did the flare.
Yeah, covering
It
your
was
face
covering
is
its
not
face.
ignoring the fire, though.
Yeah, it's not. It may not be ignored, but it was still trying to
But
get to her.
you said that they would ignore it. So clearly, it wasn't ignoring it; it was trying to bypass it. So
Yeah, yeah.
really,
My bad on that.
you could keep yourself safe if you just keep a stick of fire in front of
No,
you.
you're not. You're not exactly safe because that zombie was still trying to get to her.
Okay,
The zombie will try
I
to
see
get
you're a
over.
little stubborn on this one, my friend. I'll tell you what. Do you really think holding a flare would stop the Snyder zombie from just tackling you? The answer is no,
You're
it
right on
wouldn't.
that.
It wouldn't slow it
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
But the flare slowed down that one Shangri-La looking zombie that Francine was holding
Okay.
off.
But even then, I've shown the Romero zombies are still physically stronger and they still have the potential. I'm showing you a screenshot that the pre-statement that he said that they will eventually get stronger than human beings.
All right, well, when's eventually?
I just sent the screenshot.
Yeah, no, but when is the eventual part of like when will they get super strong? Because in the film, as far as I'm concerned, in the film, they're not that much of a threat. They couldn't get past wallpaper. I get that they have a strong grip strength, but that's not the same as being able to crack a windshield with one punch. Which, by the way, is an inhuman feat. You can't just punch a car windshield with your fist. That's already at superhuman levels of strength.
I agree, but we also seen the zombies rip limbs apart. One zombie that one guy when he tried to is
Right.
on that machine where on the hand. Yeah, you seen that part?
Yeah, but again, that's coming down to the difference that I'm trying to communicate to you, which is there's grip strength, like being able to rip something, and then there's the ability to hit something really fucking hard. And we don't have any of those feats. Even when it comes to raw physical strength, not grip strength, right? Just the ability to push on something or to move through it. The Romero zombies couldn't get through a thin piece of a fake wall. It was like less than a centimeter thick. It was basically paper that was painted on. They struggled to get through that, right? Sure, they can rip things open, but they don't have the ability to actually have raw physical strength or striking strength. Whereas the Snyder zombies in the very first like 10 minutes of the movie, you got a zombie that freaking headbutts straight through a door, getting that reference from The Shining. Here's Johnny, and then you've got the same zombie bolt out the house, and then he one shots a windshield.
Yeah, there's also a zombie that ripped straight through a barricade. You've seen that? Dawn of the Dead, the original film. Have you seen that part?
You'd have to reference
It
the
is a way
scene for
better.
me.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah,
Wait a
you'd have to
second.
reference the scene for me because I'm gonna be honest. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced because as what I'm hearing is okay. Yeah, they have a strong grip, but they're not gonna catch me. I can outwalk them. Walt Jr. from Breaking Bad could outwalk them, and he's got cerebral palsy. I mean, I'm not gonna say that they're not. You shouldn't ignore them, right? You don't want to get complacent with them. I agree with Peter Washington where he said like, "Hey, yo, you still gotta be careful around these motherfuckers," but comparing them to the Snyder zombies, if I personally had to choose which one I want to deal with, I'm going to deal with the Romero zombies until we get to Land of the Dead. Then I might have a debate there. Then I might be a bit worried. When the
They're still
zombies.
physically stronger. This is the scene I was talking about. They managed to break through a barricade wooden
Oh
wall.
yeah, I remember that. That's it. During the SWAT raid, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but that's
It just
that that's
means
a that's a
they're
ton of them. That's a ton of them that did
yeah.
that. And the in the opening of Dawn of the Dead remake, one of them could get through that. I mean, look how thin that wood is.
Fair point.
Yeah, Lewis. I think that was Anna's husband. It's never really clarified if it was husband or fiance or boyfriend, whatever. The dude just freaking barricades through a wall like he's working for the FBI.
All
So,
right.
so I don't think I'm convinced. I don't think people listening to this would be convinced that the Romero undead are more of a threat than the Snyder undead.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and
In
start
in
wrapping this
terms
up
of
so we
the
can go on to the next
Dawn of the
topic.
Dead stage, if that's your mean, if Dawn of the Dead stage.
We're gonna go ahead and start wrapping this up so we can move on to the next topic. Do you have anything more you want to add before we judge this segment power scale?
If I can add the additional feats regarding more to the Beyond the Dead, the Dawn of the Dead, then I can do it. But if we're just focusing on dawn or night, then I can't.
Fair
Well,
enough.
yeah, the debate is between these two films specifically. All right,
All
so
right.
Let me.
I'm gonna go ahead and make my judgment on the segment. Keep in mind
Oh
this
no! Wait,
is
wait, wait, wait till the end of the.
I'd rather do it now
Oh, you
before
would
I
rather do it
forget.
now? Oh,
Yeah.
before you forget.
So my
Okay.
judgment on this segment is not based on what I think is better. My judgment is based on who I believe made the better argument for their point. This is not a I think this side's better or the other side's better. This is purely just based on how well you made your argument for your point. Um,
All right.
so I'm gonna go ahead and give Gold a 9 because I feel like every point that he argued, he referenced and had a great uh, had a great argument for what he was trying to portray that the zombies were capable of. I'm gonna go ahead and give Bill here. I'm gonna have to give you a 5 for this one. Unfortunately, the only real argument that was coming from you on your end was the zombies' strength in a few scenes, as well as potential, but not much beyond that.
And now I guess Sleepy and Mark who came in here in the middle. I guess you guys can give your scores 1 out of 10. You could type it down since I guess that's what we're
All right. All
doing.
right. And
Well, by the way, since I went first, I think you should go first for the for since because we're gonna move from the Romero dead to the Snyder undead because we're still in the undead category, technically speaking.
Can you guys hear me good?
I can hear
Okay,
you.
we can
Yeah,
hear you.
Okay. So I joined in the middle because I fell asleep.
no
Sorry about
problem.
that. But So from what I heard, uh, I think most of Captain's points are pretty good. The only thing I would disagree on is more so how the Romero zombies are like visualized and seen as a threat. Um, but that mostly comes down to personal like interpretations from me. Like, yeah, I get the the whole running zombies thing is much more immediately terrifying. And I'd like, never leave my house in either situations, obviously. Um, but like, I also, so yeah, I'll give you like I'd give that like a 9. I agree with Sleepy, but um, I also think like Vil, I think he made good points with the whole with like establishing how strong these zombies really are, with like being able to rip out limbs and stuff. Vil, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't there a scene where the zombie like rips out that guy's like entire spine?
That's only in the dawn. Day. Sadly,
I
I'm
still
Okay,
need to
okay.
see
unable.
that
I'm
I'm
not.
movie.
thinking of,
I'm
the
unable
wrong
to
movie.
use the feet. Yeah, I am unable to use the feet.
But yeah, like
I'm
the
unable to
whole
use those
thing
feet.
with me and like this movie is that like they're like it's a more of a overwhelming force. Like yeah, you see that with Snyder Zombies too, but I don't think it's quite as presented well. But again, that's just me because I'm more so like the slow approaching and unstoppable force, more opposed to the fast paced one that we see get cut down quite a lot. Because I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, like remembering both of these films, like yeah, these zombies are a lot faster, but we see like a bunch of them just like go down so quickly too. They didn't like to me seem as much of a threat. So Vil, I'm gonna give you I'll give you a 7. And then that'll be like my for this round final thoughts.
All right, well, we're still talking
Okay,
about the
okay.
undead. We're just gonna talk about the Snyder ones now. Um,
Okay,
All right, all right.
so it's
I'll
it's
go
it's
mute
it's
for
like
that.
it's basically like we're right now. Y'all are just scoring the little rounds within the rounds. But since I went first, I think I'll let Vil go for Vil or Cinephile go first.
The second stage, the characters,
No, we're we're
characters,
we're
right?
we're talking about the Snyder undead now because we talked about the Romero
Oh, okay.
undead, but now we're going to talk about the
Oh,
Snyder.
okay.
So you'll argue
Okay,
why
yeah,
you
yeah.
think they're not as good as the Romero.
They're not as good.
Well,
Well,
I mean, unless that's
problem.
your position, whatever your position is on the Snyder zombies.
My position in front.
All right, so
Well, the
you can
problem.
go ahead
Oh,
and begin
okay.
your argument. You got 5 minutes.
All right, all right, all right. My problem with the Snyder zombies that is that we do know that they eventually get defeated in the end because we've seen Andy's tapes around that. This just means that the Snyder zombies only won because they never had the potential to become more powerful. Wait, my bad on that. They never had the potential to become. They lost because they never had the potential to become better. Unlike the Romero zombies, that's also that's pretty much it. Yeah, they're fast, but we do know that they lack a lot of potential to become better. They're pretty much mindless monsters, raging beasts and stuff like that. They just run around and they don't have a lot of intelligence. While unlike Romero's, they're Romero's act that what's that? What is it called again? Uncanny feeling of vibe. They're trying to be human and stuff. The Romero zombies they remember they recall their former selves that they actually try to be human in a far away glance, and we can see that in the film. Whereas the Snyder zombies, they're pretty much raging beasts, and they don't have a lot of aura or what's it called or presence. They just don't have the presence or creep factor that Romero zombies did, and also you can't admire much of their looks and stuff. Romero did had the design had made the zombies made the zombie design more varied. Whereas Dawn of the Dead zombies all look pretty much the same. They all just look like raging monsters. Whereas Romero added the detail that zo- the each of the zombies look differently, and also implied that how they died and stuff like that. And that's pretty much it.
That's all you got to add. You're finished.
Yeah,
All right.
All right.
yeah. Oh, I forgot. They're also weaker physically. The Snyder zombies.
All right. Is that all that you have to add then?
Yeah, that's all.
Okay. All right. Gold, you can go ahead and start. You have 5 minutes.
All right. So the reason
All right.
I personally think the Snyder zombies are the better undead is precisely because one, they're just fast as fuck. They're super sprinters. They never get tired, right? And they all run like fresh athletes even after a month of standing outside exposed to the elements. They're durable enough to survive a propane tank explosion if they're not at the epicenter of the blast. If they are at the epicenter of the blast, they get blown to bits. But they can tank Molotov cocktails. They require extreme heat to truly cook their brains. They climb better than the Romero zombies, at least within the 1978 film, right? As seen with the legless zombie that was climbing in the garage and got Bart. The zombie that killed Steve the Prick also climbed up a bus and basically jumped him.
Yeah,
The zombies, while they were on fire, were trying to climb the fences in the garage. As mentioned before, they can rather easily shatter car windshields just with ease. They're smart enough to hold open doors for other zombies, like when Chips tried to get food for Andy, and one of them held a little doggy door open, and then they all kind of just busted in like they were playing Rainbow Six Siege. Uh, they're also one of them was actually I looked this back. One of them was smart enough to pick up the propane tank that CJ throws into the horde, and just before CJ shoots it, this zombie literally holds it over his head as if he's trying to throw it back at him. They're attracted to noise like most zombies are, but they'll ignore it if they can determine it's not worth the pursuit or if it ain't human, as seen when the helicopter flies over the mall. So that suggests a level of intelligence that's beyond that of the Walking Dead, because with the Walking Dead, they'll see you up there and then they'll hear the helicopter and they'll just wander off. But no, these undead, they saw the helicopter, they said, that ain't person, that ain't food, and they stayed at the mall and they basically just besieged the group at that mall for an entire month. And we know that it's a month because of the bonus features from Andy's Lost Tapes. They're smart enough to take a gun out of your hands like they did to Kenneth during the Andy rescue mission. They're not afraid of fire. You pull out a fire in front of them and they'll just run through it and try to tackle you. They're far more numerous as a horde. The film lightly hints that they're acting on instinct or memory, but that's a stretch. I'll say that's a stretch. I will say though, unlike the Romero zombies in the 1978 film, these guys can fucking grapple. When you look at the zombie that tried to kill Michael in the beginning in the sporting goods store, that motherfucker was trying to choke out Michael. Like he straight up put his hands on his throat and was trying to choke him out. That's insane. These Hellspawn demons for me, they're just more threatening than the slow shamblers of the original film. I understand how some people feel that the slow ones are creepier, that they are somehow more menacing, like a slow force of nature. But I don't want to be rude to anyone here, but I
yeah,
consider
yeah. It's
that
fine. It's fine.
copium because at the end of the day, which would you rather have to face? And I think anybody listening to this would like to face the zombies that they know a kid with cerebral palsy, aka Walt Jr. from Breaking Bad, could outwalk. Okay, when I was a kid, I remember distinctly, I saw Night of the Living Dead. And then after that, I think I saw House of the Dead. I think that was a movie that came out back then too. I never thought zombies were a threat, right? I didn't get to see 28 Days Later. I got to see that later on. But when I saw Dawn of the Dead, that gave me nightmares. And my family, my parents who had seen the original Dawn, they thought the original was more of a satire. And the new one, that scared the living shit out of them. I don't think I've ever met anyone who genuinely believes like not as a matter of philosophy or movie taste, genuinely believes like if they place themselves in that situation that a slow zombie would be creepier, more dreadful, and scarier than something that's stronger than you, faster than you, won't get tired, and there's certainly a hell of a lot more of them on the screen than was in the original, right?
You have 30 seconds left.
30 seconds. All right, let's make this quick. If the SWAT team at the beginning, when you showed that barricade scene, if those were Snyder zombies, they'd all be fucking dead. Period. End of story. If the Monroeville Mall was filled with those sprinters, they'd never take the mall. Period. Um, as for them all looking the same, I'll agree with you on that. I'll agree with you on that. I'm out of time though, so it's up to you now. You can go ahead and give me your retort.
What did you say? I wasn't able to hear you. Your voice is glitching, by the way.
It's your turn now.
Yep.
You can give your retort.
It's your turn.
Oh,
So
okay.
you both given your points, so you can go ahead and have your back and forth here.
Okay, you say the Romero zombies aren't very much a threat because you only ignored the potential of what they can do in later films because it's even established that these zombies have potential and it's not very clearly shown in the Dawn zombies, but as we can see in later stages of the outbreak, like 3 months, the toe tags movie, I mean the toe tags comics, they clearly show of what they are capable of. They're capable of making an army, a militarized army in the later stages of the outbreak, like 3 months after the outbreak. Oh, Dawn of the Dead only takes 3 weeks after the outbreak. If you give these Romero zombies a lot of time, if you make them more experienced, see a lot of humans, they can learn from humans. You see, and that's why I say that the Romero zombies are a much larger threat if you don't keep these things in check. That's also the point in Dawn because the Dawn zombies are still not at that are not still not at their full potential. However, it's clearly shown and mentioned in the film that they will eventually get more powerful and stronger as stated by the priest in the film. Even Peter said do not to say that we shouldn't underestimate these zombies, and there's even a deleted scene that he should the to there where he what was that name, the reporter guy, the Stephen, I think, am I right? And where he says he reprimands Stephen to never ever underestimate these zombies. Also, the Romero zombies can wears the face of your loved ones, and they will try to reenact your past behaviors of loved ones. That's what also makes these zombies a lot more complicated because some people will still try to latch onto these because these Romero zombies still try to act like humans, hence which also affects the society because some people, people will try to capture these zombies, still try to think that these zombies are still their loved ones. Some people will definitely try to that. The Romero zombies, which will only make the outbreak worse because these zombies will eventually learn to get better and will eventually learn that to snap the chains off because Romero zombies at the later stages, they can snap chains off, they can break through concrete, and they're way much stronger. However, I'm unable to show these because you only want to talk about the dawn stage of the outbreak of the Romero zombies. Hence, I am unable to show you. However, I am willing to show you if you are willing to do it. If
Well,
you're up for it,
the
that's
reason we're
okay.
only talking about Don is ultimately because this was a debate that was sparked on a video that I published that was comparing two specific films. Because if we were talking about Land of the Dead zombies, then I'd be like all in with you. I'd be like, okay, now I'm fucking worried. The guy picked up a gun and started shooting it. But that's not what we're debating here. Um, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of society collapsing, and in terms of all of their great feats, I feel like Romero, honestly, honest to God, I feel like he upped the power level of these zombies over time because people just weren't taking them as seriously. Um, Also, when we look at the special features for Dawn of the Dead's remake on the DVD, the United States is completely collapsed within the first 24 hours. That that is incredibly fast. Now, sure, the DVD for the Andy special says that there are survivors and that the epidemic eventually ends. We don't know when it ends. We're never told when it ends. But also, I haven't seen Survival or Diary of the Dead, but I know for a fact, at least as far as the Romero films are concerned, humanity isn't extinct. So I don't see
What did you
how
say?
we can.
Your voice is glitching. What did you say? Your voice were glitching just now. What did you say?
I said,
Earlier.
where did I lose you?
Your earlier statement. Your voice was just glitching just now. I didn't catch that.
Well, all I'm saying is we know that in both universes, humanity doesn't go extinct. But we know the
No,
collapse of humanity.
no. I have to correct you on that. Romero have always stated that humanity will eventually go extinct from the Romero zombies. It's clarified on that. On there's the Twilight of the Dead movie where he intends that humanity will eventually get extinct on that movie, and
Eventually.
it's still yeah.
Has it ever been shown?
Not yet, but we would just be appealing to ignorance because Twilight of the Dead is still in the making, and they're planning to do that right now.
Still in the
Twilight of the Dead.
making?
Yeah.
That's
Brad
crazy.
Anderson is
Because
gonna do it.
Romero's dead.
Yeah, and we've seen society. There's only just few remnants of mankind left, as shown in the Living Dead novel and Land of the Dead. Yeah. So the reason why
Regardless,
wait
regardless,
a second.
because
I
we're getting to the
okay,
point where this is
make your
taking
point.
forever.
Okay.
Regardless, we're talking about one film, and at the end of the
No,
day, it's very difficult to take to have a suspension of disbelief with the zombies shown on screen. Whereas I totally understand how society could canonically collapse in 24 hours from the Snyder zombies. That's understandable to me. Now, if we were talking about Land of the Dead, that's a different story. And if we're talking about other crap from the Romero verse, that makes sense. But insofar as these films are concerned, just comparing the two, I don't see how anybody views the Romero Undead as being better than the Snyder ones. I mean, I can understand if you say, well, maybe the Romero Undead better represent the allegory of the film. I think that's a fair argument, but you could easily say that the sprinters embody the modern desire for instant gratification, basically being the perfect manifestation of a zombie for the early 2000s in a post 9/11 world. Uh, but aside from that, I really don't see how you can say that, intelligent or not, there's a lot of suspension of disbelief required when you're telling me the world's going to end and humanity's going to go extinct because things that are slower than a kid with cerebral palsy learned how to pick up a gun and shoot it. So that's all I have to say.
you see, because you're only saying that based on the Dawn stage outbreak.
Because we are
I'm only
comparing two films.
yeah.
We're not comparing two
I know,
universes.
but
And I already gave you that. I
yeah,
said if we were talking about Land of
I
the
know.
Dead, it'd be a different story.
Yeah, I know, but this is still in set in the same universe, right? It's still in
Yeah,
the
but
same
Bill,
set.
can I add something?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
sure.
Uh, yeah, I think like so I agree with you on the whole like because this is all the same continuity. When you bring up this other media, I completely agree. Like, what if you bring that up? He's even saying like he would like have an argument for your idea. For me, it'd be like a no sell because you have zombies who are like smart enough to pick up guns, intelligent enough to actually lead zombies into war against humans, and other horrifying stuff. But the problem is that it's been agreed that we are like looking at these as individualistic films. Um, so like bringing it's the same thing with like So with the Snyder zombies, I don't know if we're talking about, because I didn't even know the 2021 film was like connected to the 2004 film at all. That's news to me now. But like, if we're looking at these as individualistic like films, like comparing 1979 to 2004, then we should only look at what happens within those films. I agree, including like deleted scenes or bonus features, obviously. But like, even if it's like something that is directly canon or like connected, we should only be like explaining what happens in those films that someone would have easy access to. So yeah, we should like. While I do agree with you, I don't think like bringing up interpretations or things that happen outside of that film is really like a good point, because we've all, and like, if you were gonna like eventually go into the topic of um like after this, like, aren't you guys going to talk about like which zombies would like win in a fight or something?
Next
Or
we're
is that
gonna
what
be next we're gonna be talking about we're gonna be talking about which characters were better, and then we'll be talking about the
Okay.
plot, and then production quality, and then we'll be moving on to legacy. But legacy, we agree which one has the better legacy. Like we could just say it right now. Romero's film has the better legacy. It's a no
yeah,
brainer.
like
But that's what we're gonna be moving on to. To,
yeah,
to get to your point, I can give you a really good analogy as to the issue that we're having here with the conversation. It's you're having a power scaling conversation. Let's say I'm arguing for New 52 Superman, and my boy here, Cinephile, is arguing for DBZ Goku, and then all of a sudden, one of us, let's say I bring in, I don't know, post crisis Superman feats, and then he starts bringing in DBS feats. That's not the subject of the debate. It was quite clearly New 52 versus DBZ. And so that's clearly the issue here. We're talking ultimately about a film. And I've already conceded, hey, look, if we're talking about Land of the Dead, you know, now we have room to really argue because, again, the motherfucker picked up a gun and fired it. That's a threat level that's much higher than what's established in the 78 film.
yeah, yeah. That's like a good analogy, I would say. Um, but yeah, like basically, I think that we should just um like are you bringing in any like stuff from the 2021 film, like
No.
even like that's connected? Okay, so see there, we should only look at what we see, what we know, what we hear, and what we can establish from both films by themselves.
You can use a
Um,
novelization or special features if you'd like.
yeah, like exactly. Like that's like when I'm talking about Resident Evil or God of War, like we've talked about the novelization as well, because that's still the same thing. It's just it's going to give you a much more specific and real like different interpretation of the exact same thing. But yeah, that's basically all I have to say on that, because I think like that's like bringing up other media is kind of like a bad point if we're just comparing one film against another film. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay. I get it.
Well, I think we're good to. Are we going to score the round and move on to characters? Because I think the audience, whenever they
Sure.
see
Sure.
this uploaded, they're going to want to hear. They're going to want to get to the juice, the real meat of the debate for the film, which is the characters and then eventually the plot.
Yeah, my opinion. Uh, Gold definitely argued more facts within the actual film itself. Again, there was I guess, a misunderstanding on Power Skill's part about what exactly was being debated, but unfortunately, I still have to judge him on the argument that he made. And most of the argument that he made was within the continuity of the film, but not the film itself. And this is a debate between the two specific films. He did use some points that he made a good argument with from the actual film, but there wasn't many of them. So unfortunately, I have to go with a 5 again for him. Uh, and I will give Gold an 8 for the solid argument points that he made. There was a bit of a tangent on some other things, but for the most part, he stuck to what his argument was and made his point.
All right, I see Sleepy gave his score, so I guess we can move on to the characters now. Would you like to go first, or would you like me to open up? We're going to be talking about Romero's characters first, and then we'll do Snyder's. So we'll have a back and forth on the Romero characters, and then eventually we'll get the score, and then from there we'll do the Snyder characters. So would you like to go first, Vil, or would you like me to open things up for this portion of the
Snyder,
debate?
you go first on the Snyder.
All right.
Well, I'm going to be
You go
doing
first.
Romero. We're going to talk Romero first, then Snyder.
Okay, okay.
So you
I
would
should go first.
you want to go first? Or you want me to go first? I didn't hear you.
Go first. You go first.
I'll
You
go
go first.
first. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So
All right.
we got the
Cole.
timer.
Yep, you're all set to go first. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, I got a lot of shit to say, and I got to say it quick. Um, Obviously, I think the cast is good for the time. Peter is the survivor who experiences the worst of the apocalypse. He finds the will to continue living by the end, even though he contemplates maybe, offing himself. Francine starts off as the useless woman who learns to defend herself while also learning to fly a helicopter. Roger's the man who ultimately lost his life due to his ego, something that is confirmed in the special features or behind the scenes featurette by Scott Renninger, the actual actor who portrayed the character. Stephen Flyboy Andrews is the ordinary and insecure man who succumbs to materialism more so than the rest of the cast by the end of the film. Now, clearly, Peter and Francine were historically significant characters. You have a black lead and a female lead who went against the established norms of the time. Roger and Peter's friendship was also the best friendship, I believe, in both movies. Although I feel the friendship between Andy and Kenneth was arguably better portrayed given the extremely limited screen time given to both characters. That's all the nice things I got to say for that right now. As groundbreaking as these characters are, at least for the horror genre, I'd say they largely don't hold up for today. For starters, I just wasn't fully captivated by the cast, whereas I found myself being a little better able to relate to the remake's cast while also finding most of their stories to largely be interesting. It's a large cast, so there's some characters that just fall by the wayside. And this is all despite the shorter screen time and wider focus on a larger cast of characters, even with the director's cut. Romero's arcs are incredibly simple. They're predictable. They are not masterpieces of literature. Anyone could understand what was going to happen within the first 10 minutes of the film. The actors themselves weren't exceptionally talented, which has a charm of its own, so I don't blame anyone for preferring it. But the portrayal of these characters was often wooden and campy, and even at some points just awful. And this absolutely matters because a good idea on the script or on paper being poorly executed is ultimately a poor product. I'm looking at you, Attack of the Clones. And those viewing this, I think, will come to see that I genuinely think the original film's value is often overinflated, whereas the remake's quality is often downplayed. No doubt due in part to what I believe is people's nostalgia and respect for Romero's legacy. And now that I think about it, even Peter Washington feels like a repeat casting gimmick from Romero, who already had a black lead in Night of the Living Dead. And you know what? I think, me personally, from what I can remember, I think Dwayne Jones's Ben was probably the better character. Now, despite this being a close competition, I feel that Snyder and Gunn's characters are actually a little bit better, which is a conclusion I'll have to expand on when we focus our talk on the Snyder casted characters. In fact, let me go back. There's another thing I almost forgot to mention. So Francine is also seen as a trailblazer for female characters in horror films, and I never quite understood why that was the case. She goes from being a useless woman to learning how to shoot a gun and fly a helicopter. Wow. The same year we got Laurie Strode, 1978, Halloween, the final girl, right, for horror movies. We got Sally Hardesty in Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 1974. And if we're talking about just general strong female characters for the time, real trailblazers, a year before that in 1977, we got Princess Leia in Star Wars: A New Hope. So, I think that this historical significance of Francine's character tends to be overblown. I think it's a great thing. Don't get me wrong, and I think she and Ken Foree were the best actors in the show. Galen Ross and Ken Foree. But I don't think these characters largely hold up for modern times at least. But that's all I have to say on that. I'll let you take over from now.
Okay.
All right,
Can
Bob, you
you
good?
please okay.
Are you ready to begin?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, go ahead. You got 5 minutes.
All right, all right. Can you please cite the source that Roger did became reckless because of ego? Can you please cite the source on that? Yeah.
It's the behind the scenes featurette. You can find it on YouTube. It's you just type in Dawn of the Dead 1978 behind the scenes. I have it on a video that's going to be posted today, and he says verbatim.
Okay.
Well, not verbatim. I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the actual quote, but he basically
For sure.
says that Roger was a guy who felt he could overcome any challenge, and that he was always optimistic, but that ultimately that was his one and fatal flaw. And that's exactly how he gets killed because even Peter Washington has to pull him aside and tell him, hey, you're not just playing with your life, you're playing with my life, right? And this was right after he was like, yeah, we got this, we can take these guys, they ain't shit, right? So I think it's quite clear that it's not really PTSD, it's just really this guy got so complacent and used to beating their ass that he got a little bit too gung-ho and got bit twice. But yeah, you're free to look that
Okay.
up on your own time if you want. We're waiting on
Wait
you.
a second. Wait a second. Please wait.
Oh, okay. Pause the timer.
Wait a second. My bad about that. My nephew keep getting inside.
No, that's no problem.
Anyways, regarding the Dawn of the Dead original characters, they're definitely. I think there are definitely a lot more nuance and have their own complexity to them compared to the remake because the original has a lot more personality. There's a lot more personality to them, even though it's a little bit subtle. However, however we do know that. Take for example, Francine, for example, like she she actually tries to do her best even in a time of crisis. Like she actually tells her boss to fuck off and say that it's putting what was it? Rescue stations under news broadcast that these rescue stations are no longer valid to use because they've probably been overrun. You do see that's the thing you get she tries to do her best even in time of crisis. Like compare that to Anna from the remake. Yeah, Anna, we, we only know about her job, but we don't get a lot of personality from her, which I consider that very bland from from the remake. Hence why I consider the original a lot more superior because there's a lot of flaws in them for sure but these are character flaws rather than a flaw in their characters. I don't think they're outdated or such because when you compare them to modern zombie characters nowadays, they're definitely a lot more nuanced. And they don't need to be masterclass characters. They just need to be superior from typical zombie characters like that one zombie character that's just there or just there to be as a way to die horribly for a shock in the audience. That's it. And the characters just have a lot also have a lot more witty dialogue and banter to them. There's also a lot more. Wait a second. We spent a lot of time with them as well, and you learn to care about the original Dawn characters because we just we care because we spend a lot of time with them, and they're also not as stupid or annoying compared to the remake because the remake just feel like they're directed by the plot and there aren't characters that trying to shape the plot. I prefer characters trying to shape the plot rather than the plot shaping up the characters because it's way better because you get the sense that these characters are like real person and rather than just meat shields or food for the zombies. For example, the character like what was that character? The blonde girl in the remake. What was that? What's her name?
Oh, the hot chick. I
Monica.
don't even know her name.
Yeah.
I
That's
just call her the hot
her name.
chick.
Yeah. Anyways, her character was just there to get her naked and her naked and shit, and you
I
see
wasn't
Steve
complaining.
and that character is just there, and I don't like the characters are just a lot of the characters in the remake are just there for plot and sometimes fan service and just for shock value. However, when you compare that to the original, they have meaning. They're there for a reason. They're there for a reason. They aren't just there for, oh yeah, I'm just gonna be here and I'm gonna be here to be sexy and then die in a very gruesome fashion for the audience. Whereas when Roger dies in the original, you actually feel for him. Like you can see the sadness in his eyes, and you can also see the sadness in Peter's eyes. You can see that they're still trying to be they're still trying to comfort each other, even though Rogers is pretty much fucked at this point. You know that he's dying, and you can even see him snapping at one point, and you can hear him shouting and stuff. You don't get that much in the remake. They're just, I don't know, man. I don't know. I say it. The
I'm
remake
gonna go ahead
is
and
they're
stop you
just
there
very
because
bland,
you're
and
well
they're
past your
just
5 minute
there
mark,
for
and I've already gave you
wait,
extra
wait.
time.
Have have I overstepped?
Yeah, I'm
Have
gonna go
I
ahead and
gone
stop you
enough?
there because you're past the 5 minute mark. I gave you extra time because you asked a question in the beginning, and I also paused the timer for you when you needed to look something up.
I'm
So
I've already
we're
passed
gonna
the
go
time.
ahead and stop you there.
Okay. My bad.
All
Sorry.
right, yeah, no, it's no problem. We're not having a super formal debate or anything.
Just trying to keep it condensed for time. We don't want to
Right,
make this too long.
right. There's a lot of things you said that I can only really address when we move over to the Snyder part of the little exchange we're having here. So there's really not much I could say in that regard. But insofar as what you said about the original cast, um, I'm not hearing any reason why I should take your opinion on this. I'm just hearing your preferences. I'm not hearing why your preferences ought to be the same preferences I should have, right? And I take great issue with particularly one claim you make, which is we spend a lot of time with these characters. I've seen a lot of shitty shows on Netflix and Apple TV. I spent a lot of time with those characters. Spending time with them didn't really make them good characters. Um, I feel like you're downplaying a lot of the remakes cast, but again, I have to wait till we get to that portion of the debate in order to air my grievances. Now, I will say the competency argument, which is it's unfair because I published this video today. It's coming out today at least. But I feel like the Monroeville gang's competency is over exaggerated. You know, half the team gets themselves killed due to their own foolishness against objectively weaker zombies, at least within the context of those specific films. Um, they had an easy exfiltration method with the helicopter. The Monroeville Mall was superior to the Crossroads malls in terms of survival longevity. Like the Crossroads Mall didn't have a hardware store, it didn't have a hunting goods store, it didn't have a ton of civil defense, non-perishable food crates filled with spam and potable water. Um, you know, they had it easy. Like, I mean, when you really think about it, there's less zombies, weaker zombies, better mall. Of course, they're going to seem more competent, right? We're basically glazing the physical prowess of someone who stole candy from a baby. It's easy to seem competent when you have little to no adversity. Whereas the Snyder team or the Milwaukee crew, they were kind of playing on the hardest difficulty. And I think if you rewatch the film, you'll see, yes, the plot sort of determined what they would do, but it's more so that the threat they faced left them with little choices but to be reactionary, constantly putting them on the back foot for the most part. So I think you're over exaggerating the strength of these characters in the IQ department, and downplaying the Snyders. Although I will give you one. It's something I say in my video coming up today. Although this video will be posted probably on Wednesday when I'm done adding extra graphics to it. So, but I will say Peter Washington is the best survivor out of both films, and that's all I gotta say. Are we? Is there anything you'd like to add, or are we ready to move on to the
Yeah,
Snyder cast?
yeah. I'm gonna say on that part, you saying that the Monroeville Mall survivors, one of them died not because of their incompetence, but you do have said it that why he died is because of his ego. Roger, that wasn't because of his own incompetence. That was because of his own ego. He was getting over too confident that yeah, these zombies are fine. We're pretty good
Well,
at it.
getting
And then
overconfident is something an incompetent, or getting overconfident is something an incompetent person would do. It's a real serious error.
yeah, but that doesn't mean he's really incompetent, Roger.
It got
I
him
mean,
killed. I think
if a
that's pretty
smart person, if
incompetent.
a smart person does dumb things, does that make him idiot? Because Albert Einstein made a lot of dumb things.
In
Does
that
that make him an
moment, it
idiot?
made him an idiot, and that
Yeah, yeah.
moment really mattered.
I get. My point is that yes, Roger was overconfident. That doesn't make him a very incompetent or an incompetent person in general. Roger was very competent throughout the movie until he got
Until it
overconfident
really
on that part.
mattered.
What you said?
Until it
Your
really
voice glitched.
mattered. It's kind of like when LeBron James choked that one championship. It's kind of like that. Great player, couldn't get the ring because when it mattered the most, wasn't competent.
Yeah, but that's that. The thing is that the original, it was a moment of weakness for him. The character, it was a character flaw that he has, not a flaw in the character writing, but a flaw in the character within the character
Oh, sure,
personality and stuff.
that is certainly a character flaw. I'm willing to give
Yeah,
you
yeah,
that. I'm just saying that factually speaking, he died because of his own incompetence at that very moment.
yeah. Just one incompetence, whereas the
It
Milwaukee
really mattered.
survivors are mostly incompetent. Most of them. Most of the time, they're very incompetent. Even Anna, in the early stages of the
Well,
outbreak, she
we'll
pretty
get
much
to
just
that in a minute because I want to focus on
okay,
the
okay, okay.
Romero.
Sorry, sorry.
We'll get to that in a
My bad.
minute, but
My bad.
let me just help. I'm trying to help you understand the fallacious nature of your reasoning here. You could have the best pilot in the world until one day that pilot crashes a plane. No one's gonna look and say, "Hey, yo, you did your job great." For years, no, they're gonna look at him and say, "Hey, you fucked up one time in a job you can't fuck up in ever. You're fired." They would call that incompetent. They would take his wings. That's what happened to Roger. Yeah, he was trained. He was a great SWAT team operator. He did fantastic throughout the film. And then when it fucking mattered, he died because of his own incompetence. Because letting your ego take over yourself, that's a lack of self-control. That's what incompetent people do. I'll rest my case on that though, if we're ready to score.
Okay. What I'm also gonna add that spending time with the original Dawn, there's the scenes with them actually matter rather than just filler, because most of the time we see a lot of personality with them, and we see how they think and how they plan out and stuff. However, we do not see that in the remake. The remake, most of the time they make decisions on the fly, and their plans are mostly just, oh, we're gonna do this and that. Whereas in the original, they think, they they think of a plan, they react, and then they eventually react on it, reenact on it, the plan.
All right, well,
That's the thing.
I'll make this very
Everything,
quick for
every
you.
time.
I'll make this very quick for you.
Wait, what? Okay,
I'll
okay.
make this very quick. Do you think they clear the mall if the mall was filled with sprinters?
They won't be able, and they would probably not even try, because we have seen that these characters are very careful in their nature, because even we see that
Okay,
the
fair enough.
wait,
Does
yeah, okay.
Roger and Peter survive the sprinters during the SWAT raid on the apartment complex.
But they survive. I think they would never even try that in
No,
the
that's
first
their
place if
job. They
it
were
was.
there for a reason, and
Yeah. However, we do know that Roger and Peter were already planning to get out there to ditch their jobs. So
fair
yeah,
enough. Fair
if
enough.
it's the Sprinter zombies, they'll probably say, "Oh, "Yeah, I'm fucked. I'm getting out of here."
I'll tell you
They were
what.
already
I'll
thinking.
tell you what would happen. All of the plans you see them orchestrate in the original film wouldn't be possible with the sprinters. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, but we also see that these are their plans are very much dependent on the things they face. How and we do see their plans change a little bit when they started facing up the bikers. Yeah, yeah, the bikers.
They
You
wouldn't be
see
able
their
to. They
plans
wouldn't be
changing.
able to get the trucks down the hill because as soon as they got on the trucks, a Snyder zombie would climb that shit and punch the windshield open.
Yeah, but they wouldn't even
That
try that
plan's
if
dead
they
in the
were
water.
facing. Yeah, I know, but I'm saying that if they were already they knew they were already facing the Snyder zombies in the first place, they wouldn't try that with the same plan. It, I'm thinking that these characters are dynamic rather than static. You're saying that these characters are static. They will react the same even when we're facing the Snyder zombies. And I'm saying you that these characters will react differently if they facing the Snyder
Oh,
zombies
I
rather than Romero
agree. I agree. I'm saying that they seemed more competent because they were playing on
zombies.
an easier playing setting. That's all I'm saying. Like I could do
Like that.
mad crazy shit in Project Zomboid when I'm playing with slow shamblers that I can't do against
It's,
sprinters.
wait, wait a second. It's just that you imply that they would react still the same if they're facing the Snyder zombies. It's just I get the sense. My bad if on that. If
Well, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, I'm ready to move on to the Snyder characters. If you guys want to start scoring the Romero characters, I mean, who wants to go first?
I'll go first
okay,
because my score is again it's based more on how well the argument was presented, not what the argument itself is. So let's see, who do I go with here first? Um, Gold. I'm gonna give you an 8 on this one again. And the reason it's not higher is it kind of got more off topic on some areas. I feel like you made your argument for the characters pretty well. Um, Again, though, just the parts of you getting off topic are what really lowers that. But most of yours were based solely on what the show provides, and sorry, not the show, the movie, and you did use other films as a reference for the characters, but it was more so only in to make your point of the characters themselves. So I'm gonna go with an 8 for that one. And power scale. I'm gonna give you a 7 on this one. I feel like you had some really good arguments with your character claims. However, a lot of it was backed up more with opinion rather than statement on the character and any relation to the film itself. Um, other than that, though, pretty solid arguments from your side as well. So I will pass this on to the other judges.
Let's go. We'll hear from Sleepy. Maybe Mark has something to say if he's here.
Well, I didn't give my score for the last one. I gave mine for the one I came in for, but not for the one after that. But uh, but yeah, I thought
what you
some
guys think?
solid points.
What you guys think? I wasn't able to hear earlier.
I'm not,
Mark is opining now.
Okay, okay,
uh,
okay.
yeah, like I thought both sides made pretty like overall good points. Um, I wouldn't have personally like what you call it like have made as many comparisons. Like I wouldn't have like personally brought up the idea of the 1978 survivors dealing with a runner situation um because like it's a completely different interpretation of zombies. Like at that point the fast sprinting zombies weren't really um as popular, I would say. But as like Vil pointed out, they were like able to adapt two pretty different situations than just Shambler zombies. Like you mentioned, the bikers. I thought that was like a good point that they can adapt, but I also agree that if they did deal with fast moving zombies, they would absolutely be in very different situations. Um, like a fast paced horde is very different than a slow paced horde, even if there is some like mental capacity differences and like the ability to use objects to their advantage. But yeah, overall, I agree with like the scoring. Like gold, I'd probably give you like an 8, and then Bill, I'd give you a solid 7. I say.
All right, and Sleepy says he's still uh, figuring out his determination. Oh, he agrees with Mark. So there we go. Um, I opened up with Romero. Would you like to open up on Snyder's, or would you like me to just because you spent a lot of time shitting on Snyder's characters? Would you like me to start first, or do you want to go first?
Okay, I'll go start on the Snyder's
Yeah,
characters.
go ahead, shit on him all day.
All right, you have 5 minutes to make your argument. Go
Okay.
ahead, start now.
The problem with the problem with the Zack Snyder characters is just they're very, very bland. They're always dictated by the plots and events we spend rather than have any personality whatsoever. Even Anna is bland as hell. And the only character with a lot more personality was CJ, and even fucking Steve. Even Steve has a lot more personality than Annie or Anna or Michael or any of the other characters. And that's a flaw because Steve and CJ are literally side characters, and Steve is a prick. We know that he's a prick and he's very annoying, but he does bring a lot of charm and or performance. I think that goes into the actor, because the actor was very charismatic in how he portrayed that smug, unredeemable piece of shit, Steve the dipshit. And we see the character of CJ was also definitely portrayed. He has a lot of personality, and he also goes better arc than most of the characters. Like that guy actually has a personality. Like he doesn't just react the same blank expression that most of the characters of in the remake. Yeah, the remake, you could argue the character of what was that name, the black uh Kenneth, yeah, you could argue that he has a lot, that he also has personality, but the problem is that his character is very much another Ving Rhames tough guy character. He's very like, and I can see very similarities to his other character portrayals, like Benji from Benji. I'm not bad. That Luther from Mission Impossible. They're very similar, their personality, and that's not a very good thing because Bing Rames is pretty much playing the same tough guy. Oh, you ain't gonna be, you ain't talking shit about me. That type of character he plays. He always does that, and every other character, other character, like specifically the hot chick, the Monica, that was his name. I just googled the character, and her character was pretty much fan service, and there's not much else. And there's also the grandma, the grandma type. What was her name again? I forgot. She was also forgettable and very bland, and there's not a lot much on her. You could say Tucker, the character, the one where the broken leg. He could you could argue he has some personality, but this the problem is we don't spend a lot of time with him, and he's just there eventually to get ripped apart by the zombies or eaten by them, and there's that's about it. My problem is that they much of the characters don't have a lot of personality, and most of their actions are very much dictated by the plot rather than the characters themselves. Yeah, that's very much my problem with it. They're bland and don't have a lot of personality except for CJ and even Steve, Steve the prick. Yeah, that's all.
Is that your final bit of your argument?
Yeah, the overall is the characters are bland and emotionless, and most of them don't have a lot of substance, except for a few ones like CJ. That, yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, then we will stop his timer and we will pass it on over to you, Gold. You have 5 minutes.
Whoopee. Lucky me. I've got a lot of shit to say in 5 minutes. So obviously, one of the common claims people make about the Snyder characters is that they're basically just cardboard cutouts. And yeah, that really doesn't make sense to me when you look at the Romero character arcs, which are incredibly simplistic and predictable. You mentioned personality. I agree with you. They have really good personalities, but so do the Snyder characters, at least the core group, because obviously some of the some of the members of the Snyder cast were they got lost in the sauce, right? As you mentioned, CJ has a very clear positive change arc, going from a dickhead to a literal selfless hero who sacrifices himself for the team. So yeah, it's sure it's bare bones, but the arc is well paced, well executed, and Michael Kelly's portrayal really does elevate the role and character beyond what was present in the original film. Like I think CJ, in terms of complete package, is just better than any other of the characters. Um, Kenneth Hall's, or I should say Ving Rhames' Kenneth Hall, also has a positive change arc where he goes from only aiming to survive and seeking to reach his brother at Fort Pastor to caring about the rest of the Milwaukee crew. He sort of has that Jotaro problem where people who first watch Jotaro and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I don't know if you guys seen it, maybe some of my viewers have, people think he's a one-dimensional stoic tough guy. But when you pay attention to the subtext, there's a lot of layers there. There's an actual arc. It's the same with Kenneth Hall, right? And he's one of the character, the only character really in the film to really ask a really important existential question. Arguing whether or not it's better to waste away at the mall or whether or not it's better to die trying to fight for a better life outside the mall, thus symbolically rejecting consumerism itself. Right? So on surface value, it doesn't seem that deep. But when you pay attention to the subtext, not a cardboard cutout. But it is a pretty bare bones character arc. I'll give you that. But it's not a cardboard cutout. Then there's his friendship with Andy, which we don't get enough screen time, but nonetheless was impressive considering how the movie manages to make people feel bad despite them only ever truly communicating through whiteboards. In fact, the only time they ever speak is via the walkie-talkie where Andy explains he's already been bitten and he's basically dying. Right? And this was accomplished with far less screen time. I considered that a tremendous feat because it took Romero an entire film to really make me feel that way about his characters. You spoke a lot about Anna, useless or whatever, bland. She's a fighter for one. Francine was not a fighter at the beginning of the movie. She kicked her husband. She ran away. She threw that little girl across the hallway like a badass bitch. She kicked that one bus driver that tried to jack her car on the road. She's a real fighter. Anna loses her husband, her fiance, and her boyfriend in the opening minutes of the film. And then later on in the film, when things slow down, we see her actually get a second to grieve. There's a little bit of character sprinkled in there. It's more than a cardboard cutout. But Anna as a character is not complete without her other half, being Michael, right? They form a tragic relationship. Michael's a total loser. He proves himself to be a decently capable zombie survivor, even though he was a TV salesman. He's basically an improved Stephen Andrews as far as I'm concerned. Both Michael and Anna lose their families, right? We get this, we see it happen to Anna, and we know that this happened to Michael because he mentions it in dialogue. And by the end of the film, we see them slowly come together, and then they have a bittersweet ending. He gets bit, and she has to leave him behind. And the most important part out of all of this, for me at least, is that Sarah Polley, Jake Weber, Michael Kelly, and Ving Rhames portray their characters in a far superior manner to that of the original cast because they are professional actors. They're not amateurs. Then there's Steve the Prick. Dude is just a cuck the entire film. And you know what? I'm all for it. I love it. Stupidly simple character with no depth, but the performance by Ty Burrell just sells it. And of course, a good portion of the cast, like I mentioned before, gets lost in the sauce with only some serving as actual cardboard cutouts. Right, the hot chick's just there for eye candy. Glenn is just there for some classic early
Yeah.
2000s homophobia. Luda's the pregnant chick who gives birth to the dumb fucking zombie baby. Andre loses his mind because the plot didn't know what the fuck to do with him. Norma gets shot by Andre. Tucker gets mercy killed by CJ. Bart ends up getting bodied by the paraplegic monkey bar zombie. And Nicole and Terry have a stupid little romance that really doesn't go anywhere, with Nicole fucking everyone over to save Chips. And you know what? Who could blame her? It's fucking Chips. He's a good doggo. So overall, I'd give the edge to Snyder and Gunn's characters.
All right, that's your 5 minutes. If you guys want to go ahead and
We could have a quick
have
back
your,
and forth,
yeah,
or
have your quick back and forth on your arguments, go ahead.
if you have anything to say,
I should
Bill.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna say that Anna, the scene where she cries is, I don't know. It just feels like it's not very executed. A lot more, very well to the point that it makes me care because this Anna most of the time, yes, he is the fighter. He does a lot more physically when compared to Francine, but when compared to personality on or character writing, we see Francine is a lot more superior to that because we see Francine on in the in the early scene of Dawn of the Dead or an original. We see her do a lot more than Anna, because most of the time Anna, she just says yes boss, and from the doctor, because she was a nurse, whereas
That, but
Francine, she tells her boss to
that
fuck
that that
off
is
and just,
that is an unfair
yeah. Well,
representation, though, for character. She actively goes out of her way to check to make sure the fat lady zombie isn't dying until it wakes
yeah,
up. She's the one that pieces things together. Like maybe bites are what causes the whole thing, right? She's actively
that was
participating in the
later in the
debates.
movie. So
I'm just saying, you're saying that she doesn't really do much, but I
I
mean,
didn't say she didn't do much. It's just that most is that her personality is very bland.
I don't think it
That's
is.
what I'm getting at.
I don't think it
That's what
is.
I'm getting is why is that?
I mean, compare that to Francine. What did she do? She talked a lot on the news station, and then Steven runs into a zombie at the airport, and she just stands there looking both ways and not even helping her guy out. And that's her man. I mean, talk about bland. I mean, if my woman just
No, no,
watched me
bro.
die, I'd probably just break up with her on the spot, and leave her at the airport.
The first time we see Francine, she's having a nightmare on the night in the outbreak, and she tells her boss to fuck off because her boss was putting what was it, rescue stations on the broadcast they were doing, the rescue station that were already overrun, yet he's still putting it.
She told her
She
boss to
tells
fuck
her,
off, but she couldn't fight zombies.
yeah, but it shows a lot of her personality from the beginning, whereas in the remake, Anna just does say yes, and she just drives home and to her husband. That's about it. We don't we There's just not a lot of personality. We just know that she's a nurse and she loves her electric fan. My bad on that.
Yeah, and
And
we
that
just know Francine doesn't like her job, and she works at a news station, and she's with Steve.
it's not no we no Steve Francine has a high moral compared in high just has a high moral because sending people into rescue stations that are already overrun is not very good, you know. Why would you send people to their death? That's why she was yelling and telling her boss to fuck off. That's what she's doing.
Yeah, well, and Anna
Whereas
didn't.
Anna,
Well, to be fair, there was no
good.
there was no society collapsing until it just collapsed overnight when Anna woke up in the morning. I mean, there were hints about it, but it wasn't
Yeah, yeah.
really it wasn't like the news casting. What was Anna going to argue with her boss during what was seemingly a normal day?
It's just that
I
the
think
problem
I
is that
think you're just
with the,
missing the point on this one, man. She's not a bland
what
character.
okay, what was your point?
I gave you my points already. She's a fighter. She actively told
Physically a fighter.
she
Physically a
she
fighter.
stole she told Steve the prick to fuck off more than one occasion. She was actively debating during the moral dilemmas in the film. She was actively helping plan things. She was the one who helped piece together that bites might just be the problem here. What did Francine
Yeah,
do?
but you're
She spent most of the time early on in the film upstairs because the boys told her to go hang out in a closet.
yeah, because she can't fight and that she's pregnant.
But she was pregnant, but she wasn't that far along. She wasn't even showing at that point in the film. Luda was more
Yeah,
pregnant
but
than
we
her. Luda had an excuse to
yeah,
do
but we also
nothing.
yeah, but we also see that Francine is struggling with the outbreak. We see her
Yeah, 3 weeks
looking like
later.
she's depressed. I don't know. Even in the beginning, we see her pretty much very traumatized at the outbreak. Even at the beginning.
I don't think we're gonna get a concession on this one, boys. Do you have anything else to say for the rest of the characters? Because
Uh,
we've been stuck on Anna for a minute. I will say
Regarding
this though, I
the
think it is undeniable Sarah Polley's a better actor than Galen Ross.
you could say that she, yeah, Anna Pauli is a lot more charismatic than Galen Ross, and
I'll
she's
take it.
definitely
I'll take it. Let's move on. I'll take that.
yeah, yeah. Regarding Kenneth as a character, yeah, it's very the new the that he yeah he is an arc, but you also said it's also very bare bones, and that's a problem because I could still barely care about the character. Only care more about the performance of Ving Rhames. Yeah, Ving Rhames is pretty cool. Yeah, and that's the only reason I cared, not because of the character writing. Yeah, yeah, I could say this that the performance in the remake was definitely a lot more charismatic and very engaging when compared to the original. Yeah, I can say that. I can say that. Yeah, but the character writing, that's what my problem is. It's just don't spend a lot of time with them. That they're most of the time they're just goofing off,
Well, I don't think
and
we
the
really need to.
character, yes, I get. Wait. You
My
could say
bad.
that his relationship with Andy was definitely a plus to the film, but we also the problem is that also it's also very surface level. That's my that's my problem. It's just
Uh,
surface level. It's more of a plot point rather than anything meaningful. That's my problem.
I think my issue.
Whereas, okay.
Sorry for
What'd you say?
interrupting. Um,
Yeah, sure.
uh,
What'd you say?
I think my issue is that the character writing for Romero's characters. I could cut 30 minutes out of that film, and it wouldn't affect their character arcs, and that's one of my biggest issues. Whereas the remake, okay, sure, bare bones characters. So are the Romero characters. They're very bare bones. The
I
characters serve
disagree.
the
I don't disagree on
characters.
that they're bare bones.
They definitely are because you could predict exactly where their arc is going after 10 minutes. But
It's only
the
wait.
characters
It's only
really
predictable because of the influence. It's only predictable because of the influence.
well,
At the time, it
well,
was
well, characters like them existed in our other horror films. This is not some unique formula like for character writing. But the fact that with the remake, it accomplishes with the core group of characters, it accomplishes complete character arcs with a wider cast and less screen time. Like the pacing is just excellent for the remake. And the pacing for the Romero, especially with the character arcs, again, it feels like 30 minutes of that film is filler. I could cut that out and
I
nothing would
disagree on that
change.
because I disagree because the 30 minutes adds a lot of personality to the characters
But it's
and
not
adds a lot of
needed. It's
nuance.
filler.
I don't I disagree that it's not I disagree on that because if you cut out it would just remove a lot of the personality and charm of these characters, and along with their personality it would just be another plot, it would just be more plot point rather than with less charm and lot less nuance. complexity to them.
Well, that's
Yes,
the
they
thing.
may
You
seem.
say nuance, but the point of me saying that I can cut 30 minutes out and the arc remains the same means that there really isn't nuance. It's just padding.
I dis-
It doesn't even
See,
help
this is
their
why I dis-
personalities. Their personalities don't really change that much.
it does. And yes, it doesn't. Yes, it doesn't change much but we do see that it shines throughout the screen, and that's what
I don't know. It kind of made me
that's
fall
what
asleep.
gives me care. It makes you fall asleep, but it makes me care about the characters.
And I'm
Whereas
saying this as
in
someone who
the
likes
in the
season 2 of The Walking Dead.
I also like season 2 of The Walking Dead. Actually,
Yeah, it's
it adds a lot of
excellent.
personality, especially Shane.
Yeah,
Otis.
Shane's the best villain in the series, but that's off topic. All right, I think we can move on to the plot. Are you guys ready to score?
Yeah, I'll go
Okay.
ahead and start with giving my scores and my reason. So Gold, I'm gonna go ahead and go with you first. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna give you the same score as last time. I'm gonna give you an 8. I feel like with this topic, it's very difficult to not include opinion in when you're trying to describe characters because obviously how everyone individually feels about a character is opinionated. However, I feel like you gave more facts and statements and references for why you have these opinions. Um, so that's why I'm going to go ahead and give you an 8. Um, so power scale, uh, I'm going to give you the same score as well as I did last time, which would be a 7. I feel like you did the pretty much the same thing that Gold did. As again, is it's really difficult to have this debate and not include opinions on it. However, I feel like Gold made more arguments to back up the reasons for his opinions, and yours were just a little more general of just that's your opinion and not so much the reason why. That wasn't obviously the case for everything, but it was for a little more of it than Gold's. So that's my score.
All right, it's up to Sleepy and Mark to opine if they'd like.
So, for these types of arguments, something as specific as this, it's kind of hard, like to give my explanation on who gave the better argument without going into um, without like trying to not go into my own like opinions because I'm of like the opinion that like yeah, the 2004 characters they shine, especially like CJ, who's just like the greatest thing ever. Um, but like what I personally look for in a character, especially because compare a 1978 film to a 2004 film, as you pointed out, the 1978 film like the acting is not very good, but that's because like as like the film industry progresses, as demands become higher, you do note that like acting skills are necessarily like have to be improved on. Like if you compare and dialogue as well, like if you compare the acting and dialogue to A New Hope, to say a Phantom Menace, even if you don't want to say that the dialogue is necessarily better, which um, is like pretty plausible. You have to admit that the 1978 A New Hope film, like, or no, not 1970. On that year. I forget which. It came out like 1977, I think. Um, the whole like movie, the dialogue and the acting is like 90% explanatory. Like half the time they're speaking, it's explaining things and going over things. Whereas and they everyone speaks in a very explanatory way. That's just like how it kind of was, like how acting methods were, how dialogue was written, stuff like that. That's how I look at a film. So I'm like slightly more. I give 1978 Dawn of the Dead a slightly different interpretation than how I would 2004, and I judge it differently based on the year it came out, which may or may not be fair based on how you look at it. But I also think that the 1978 characters are, more real. But again, that goes into giving my own personal opinion, not like judging the arguments as you guys gave them. But judging the arguments as you guys gave them, I think like describing how the characters are like say bland or not bland for both films. I think like both sides gave pretty good arguments for both Um, I would say that like um Bill, I think you could have like explained how the 2004 cast or not cast the cast like did pretty good for what they did. Characters were bland because I agree they're aside from um two of them I like even as a kid seeing this film it's probably been 14 years since I've last seen it and I can still remember it perfectly because I watched it so many times. Um like even as a kid, I was not interested in them at all, except when they were getting torn to pieces or having sex. That was pretty cool to watch. But uh, like, yeah, I didn't think any of the characters were very fascinating, except again, my goat CJ, best like in the whole movie. Um, but like I think you could have argued that a lot better because there is like a more I would say a lack of material to go with than there is material to go with, I would say. Whereas I agree with the 1978. I think you could have pointed out how like not just like how more real they are, really. I would say, but yeah, I'll give both of you guys an 8 because I thought you guys both made pretty good arguments for like both films for pros and cons. So yeah, I'm about pretty even on that.
All right. All right. Mike is on. I guess we're waiting on Sleepy now to give his take. 7-7. All right. 7-7. Now we're going to move on to the plot. I'm guessing I'm going to go first because I've gone first for every segment. Um, are you there, Bill? Or because I see your mic is
I'm here.
muted.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm
Okay.
here.
Would
I
you
just
like me to
muted
go
because of
first or
the
would you
fan.
like to go first?
You go first. I just muted my mic because of the fan here. It gets
Oh,
sometimes.
it's no problem. I don't hear it. But yeah. Um,
All right, we'll go ahead and start the next section then. Gold, you're up. Your 5 minutes starts now.
cool. So this is a debate and not just a comparison video like the one I published that basically gave birth to this debate. I actually pulled some punches in that video. And since this is a debate, I think I'm just going to come out swinging like a motherfucker in this segment. I honestly feel that the general plot and social commentary of Romero's Dawn of the Dead is basically a reductive exercise in blatant obviousness. Like when you look at Night of the Living Dead, I know we're just talking about Dawn, but I need to make this comparison because it'll really make the point land. When you look at Night of the Living Dead, the message of the film, at least to me, was that the undead were an allegory representing a capitalist society eating itself, right? And of course, there was the obvious racial commentary around Ben, with the zombies even all being white. So we go from that to the mostly on the nose, overtly obvious social commentary wherein the undead literally represent society's surrender to materialism and consumerism. That isn't subtle. That isn't nuanced. It's a beat over your head, and Romero even admits this in the behind the scenes featurette. It almost makes it feel like Romero thought we were stupid when I'm pretty sure a fifth grader today could quickly catch the message of the film. And I also feel like the allegory overstayed its welcome precisely because it was repeatedly beat over our heads when it wasn't that deep to begin with. And I say this as someone who has studied philosophy, okay? The actual plot itself was formulaic. Yes, Romero pioneered this formula, but it is your prototypical zombie movie. We see society collapse. We see the main cast of survivors go on the run. Then they find a shelter. Then they end up having to leave the shelter. Wow. I mean, sure, we can give, again, like I said, we can give him props for creating the formula, but that doesn't really make the plot any better than any other zombie movies which came after Romero's film. And to say that because he made the formula, thus that makes his plot better is like saying, hey, you know what? The Ford Model T paved the way for the Ford Fusion, so the Ford Model T is better than the Fusion. I think that's a silly argument. Also, as stated far earlier in this debate, Romero does like to say his movie is both a horror and a satire or a comedy because, he kind of wants to have his cake and eat it too. Because if you really listen to interviews over time, he's kind of butthurt about the whole sprinting zombie thing being more popular than the Shamblers. But the issue I have with Romero's work is that the satire went a bit too far with the undead, whereas in the remake, the zombies retain their deadliness, and all of the jokes or satire come directly from the human characters, which perfectly embody the essence of materialism and especially the modern sentiment of in or the modern search or cultural desire for instant gratification. So I will say you can easily argue the plot was less contrived in the remake. That I'll absolutely give you, like 100%, especially in the final act. But overall, I really don't see how you could argue Romero's plot's any better. I think at the very best, you can argue for a stalemate because it's basically the same plot for the most part. And that's all I got to say for now until we get to the Snyder segment. I'll let you go next.
All right, power skill. You there?
I should go. Okay.
All right, you're good to go. Your 5 minutes starts now.
All right. Regarding the original Dawn of the Dead plot, you could say that the plot of the remake is they're very similar. The plot is very similar, but they're executed very differently. Romero takes his time to build a lot of his themes, subtext, stuff like that. Also, the world building itself, that that is a very standout stuff because the world building will eventually reflect on the later films, and there's a lot of establishing the rules and stuff when compared to the remake. The remake just puts you in straight into action, and without the establishment of the rules, the subtext and stuff like that comes later. The action goes straight you. Yeah, it just pulls you, but it's also very, I'd say, flashy, and on it makes it makes the other stuff seem very surface level, and that's my problem on the remake. But I gotta focus on the original. The original does a lot of, it gives you a sense of dread because it takes its time to set up a lot of many stuff, the characters, the dialogue. Also, the dialogue is even way better than the remake because the remake is has that simplistic dialogue. Most of the dialogue is just shouting, and they're very, I don't know, the most of the this just it's just very simplistic. I say the dialogue on the remake. Whereas on the original, the dialogue, you get lines like the no more room in hell stuff is a lot more executed better in the original. The no more room in hell stuff, that line, and we also get lines in the remake where I remake original. I mean, the original just have a lot more lines that are way more iconic when compared to the remake. The There's a lot of, yes, I can agree that Captain Gold's the subtext on Romero's film was definitely on the nose, but I don't think it's very much a bad thing because the original is very proud that it's on the nose. It's not trying to hide it, and it also makes the film a lot more fun and also very much, I'd say, entertaining because, oh yeah, you could say that, oh yeah, this stuff is very obvious, and that makes it that makes it a lot more fun, and you don't have to do a lot. You have to do very much a lot of what did I say, that a lot more rewatch because very subtle themes. Sometimes you need to rewatch to catch the themes and all that. I'm thinking a few films myself, but I'm not gonna example because I have to focus on the original. Anyways, the themes on the Romero's original film is just way more better and a lot more fleshed out. Even though they're, you could say, yes, they're obvious, but they're a lot more fleshed out and executed very, very well. Because every moment and scene, you can your mind just goes to the, oh yeah, he's talking about that. He's talking about that scene. Whereas in the remake, it's, it just feels more like a passing thought. Very much feels like a passing thought, and that's not very good because why would that be just be a passing thought when when your movie is supposed to message the themes like that, the subtext, it's supposed to, is that's the message, right? Or the lesson or stuff. Anyway, whereas in in the original, yeah, it always reminds you of that, the themes and stuff, while still putting you in a lot of of zombie gore and action, and while having compelling characters and dialogue. Yeah, and there's also the pacing. The pacing, you spend a lot of time with the characters, the subtext, and the setting, where a lot of world building, where which you don't get in the remake. The world building, the real world building is remake is awful, and is you only get that much world building in the special DVD the bonus or special features or something. That's what it was called. And whereas in the original, you get a lot of stuff, the plot and the world building. It feels complete, you know. Whereas also, you have to take account that the original film doesn't rely on plot contrivances, and where it has to make the characters very dumb on very dumb, very dumb, and that's makes it a good thing because you it makes the character feel more real and makes the plot feel more believable. Whereas in the remake, you just get frustrated, but that it has to rely on a lot of plot contrivances and plot induced stupidity. Whereas just in the original, it just feels a lot more better and believable and a lot more fleshed out. You just have a lot of material to think about, whereas compared to
All right, I have to
the
cut you off
remake
there
feels like
because
a
you're
movie.
already a minute
Okay,
past
okay,
your time. I was gonna
okay,
let you finish
okay.
your
Sorry.
point, but
Okay,
yeah, you're already a
sorry.
minute past your time.
Okay, sorry.
That's fine. It's okay. Uh, so I guess now I guess is my turn. Well, we'll
Well,
have the
you're at
quick back and forth,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
Go ahead and have your
yeah.
Yeah,
turn.
yeah, yeah.
A lot of the things I have to say, I'd have to say it during the Snyder segment. Um, I mean, unless you just want to jump into that instead of should we just jump into the Snyder segment because it's kind of required in order to really have a back and forth for this segment of the debate, or do you agree to that, Phil?
It's fine with you? Okay,
All right,
I'm fine with it.
we could score all of them as a cohesive, the Snyder and Romero characters. We can score all that as one group,
All
I
right.
guess, because they're really entangled.
Okay, that's fine. Who wants to go first?
Well, I guess he just went.
So you're gonna go ahead and
Yeah,
go.
yeah. Then we'll give him 6 minutes, I
What?
guess. When I'm done, maybe we can give him 6 minutes because I got a lot to say about the Snyder stuff.
Okay. Well,
All right.
all right, Gold. Go ahead and start.
All right, so you mentioned the fact that the social commentary felt like a fleeting afterthought. Now, the social commentary in the remake is actually a bit more nuanced in the sense that it doesn't overstay its welcome. It isn't thrown in your face with the presupposition that you're too stupid to get it, right? The movie clearly adapts the original's film and modernizes it. You know what the subtext is already because you've seen the original. So it's not the commentary isn't actually the focal point of the movie. And that might diminish the remake in your eyes. I can't judge you for that. For me, it doesn't, precisely because the original commentary and the commentary in the new film, it's not that deep. So why focus so much time on it, right? It feels somewhat pedantic and at times a little bit insulting. Um, that being said, where the remake really elevates itself as being above the original for me, at least in the plot, as far as the plot is concerned, isn't the moral dilemmas presented by the film. While they are very basic, it's certainly better than what we got in the original, which was not a single fucking dilemma at all, right? There isn't a real exploration of how the zombies should be treated, no dilemmas about whether we should or shouldn't terminate the undead, no dilemma about how we should wage war against the undead, no dilemma whether we should or should not kill each other to stop the zombies from spreading and so forth. I mean, the questions are brought up passively through talking heads on the news. Okay, those are moral questions. I'm talking about moral dilemmas. See, in the remake, we get the box truck incident. Pretty simple. Do we let them in or not? We get the same dilemma earlier on when Anna, Kenneth, Michael, Andre, and Luda meet CJ and his mall cops. Do we let these people in, or do we just send them away? Then there's the debate the cast has over killing the infected persons before they turn. Now, in all three cases, the cast actively debates the moral dilemma in front of them and then makes a tangible decision. Okay, no one in the main cast of the 1978 film actually debates any of the moral questions in front of them posed by the film's news footage. The cast all agrees with zero debate to kill the undead, to defend themselves from other violent humans if need be, and to just waste away at the mall. So it's quite odd to me that the original, which is seen as having to say more about humanity, doesn't even present us with a single moral dilemma. Whereas the remake has the same commentary infused with an added layer of ethical inquiry which actively challenges the cast and the audience. Now, why does this matter from a storytelling perspective? For me, dilemmas are more engaging and compelling because they force the characters to actually confront moral issues. Okay, again, it's not talking heads on the news debating an issue that doesn't even pertain to the survivors on the screen, right? Now, the plot itself, the actual plot, not the subtext, not the philosophy, not any ethical things or conundrums involving the movie, sticks to the generic formula that Romero pioneered. But the pacing is far superior. And again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Aspects of Romero's film honestly felt like filler. You could cut them out and you wouldn't miss a beat. That is filler by definition. It means it is unnecessary, it is inefficient, right? And it causes the film to move along like the slow shambling zombies on screen. To me, that's bad. Whereas in the remake, the plot never overstays its welcome. It is supremely paced and well directed as a result of that. Then there's the differences in execution, obviously. Despite both movies relying on the same formula, we have noticeable deviations in the remake from the original. Now, instead of passively hearing the news talk about the collapse of society, the remake does something better. It embodies the filmmaking adage of show, don't tell. We see the world collapse around Anna, and the title sequence gives us a real glimpse into the fall of humanity. Now, what do we get in Romero's? A bunch of talking heads on the news, and the only society I see falling is a bunch of rednecks and hillbillies on the hillside over in Pittsburgh, treating the zombies like a shooting gallery, making me really question whether or not society is falling apart. And all of this is enhanced by the bonus content on the DVD. Now, I will grant you, however, the whole zombie baby plot line and the contrived mess that was the final escape from the mall was poorly executed. Like, the escape was fun, no doubt, but the plot was just fueled by too much plot-induced stupidity for my liking, and I agree with you with that. But the end credits scene, chef's kiss. So overall, I'd say Snyder and Gunn's remake is arguably better, but I'd settle for a stalemate or a draw as I did in my original video comparing the two films. And the only reason I can settle on that conclusion is because Romero created the plot, created the commentary, and the formula that both films rely on, and of course because the remake's shitty zombie baby and contrived final act. But if you polish that ending and you get rid of the zombie baby, I think it's a blowout for the remake.
All right, is that all you have to say on that one?
That's all I gotta say, unless I have to respond to something.
All right.
I'll let Vil go next. You got to respond.
All
Okay.
right.
Okay,
Go
you
ahead.
say that. Oh, okay. What?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, you say that Romero's zombie Dawn. Do you say that the obvious political the commentaries makes the audience feel dumb? Which I disagree because it makes the film a lot more fun. That makes the film a lot more fun, and you just know that what he's saying straight up, and I don't think he's trying to be subtle about it, and it's quite obvious that he's not as shown in the film itself. However, does it really drag down the film, the obvious commentary? Because you can still enjoy it because the zombies are still take center stage of all that. You can still get you still get interesting characters like Peter, Roger, who are very much leading the story rather than plot leading them the story, plot leading the characters. You get that in the original. That's what you get. You get characters very much leading the story rather than the story leading the characters, which is very much a good thing because you in the zombie story stuff, you have to care about the characters because otherwise you just don't care who gets kicked, murked, and stuff. There's also the fact you claim that what was it? Was it original claim? What's the claim? You said that the pacing was better, which I disagree because it just leaves out a lot of the personal of these characters, which back to my original point on that, the characters are very bland and there's not a lot of personality to them and they just feel like a fictional character rather than a human being. That's real my problem because they feel like a trope character, a caricature. That's my problem. That's my problem with it. And you saying that the film that never presented any moral dilemmas is just false because we do see that the talking heads on the news very much argued that whether they should use nuclears. I'm gonna send the screenshots about it. We do see that they're very much moral dilemmas. Yes, you could say that they will not affect the care. They do not directly affect the characters, but it does indirectly because if the government really tries using nuclear weapons, it would it would be a nuclear fallout, a lot of it. And what makes you think that it won't affect the characters? Because nuclear fallout is very much a bad thing on a lot of the people, and it would turn a lot of the living people into zombies because any dead will get up, right? So saying that the Romero zombies never said anything about moral dilemmas, it also is kind of false. It also says that it questions that humanity is worth saving. It also questions that. So yeah, I say that the Romero films never pose any questions is kind of false. Yes, they they don't the characters never ask themselves directly, but the films did ask those questions. And it's presented as you say in the talking heads on the news. However, the film still presents that moral questions. It still presents a lot, and it says a lot about society. The film says a lot rather than the characters themselves.
Is are you finished?
Okay, okay.
You are, or
Is
do you
that
have
your
it? Do you have anything else to
statement?
say?
Mm, not much. No.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and move on to
Well,
the back and forth for
the
this.
back and forth. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So I right off the bat, you're confusing moral dilemmas with moral questions. So you like a moral question, ask what's right or wrong in principle, while a moral dilemma forces a choice between two actions, which each action has a significant moral cost. So from a storytelling perspective, dilemmas are more engaging and compelling because they force the characters to actually confront a moral issue. Remember how earlier on you were talking about how the characters in Snyder's remake don't have agency and how the plot moves them forward? Well,
Yep.
that's sort
Yeah.
of the same here. When it comes to deep philosophical conversations and topics, the characters in Romero's film serve the message, whereas the characters in Zack Snyder's remake actually do debate ethics on screen. So, from a philosophical perspective, when you're looking at least the characters and the plot, that is actually from a writing perspective Far more engaging, far more deep, far more nuanced or compelling. People still today argue whether or not CJ was right to want to reject the box truck survivors when they came to the mall. Nobody debates whether or not consumerism is right or wrong. Nobody debates if that's a question worth having. It is butt fuck easy to just say, I'm going to throw a question on the news and let the audience, you know, think about it. It's a little different than to present the characters with a difficult choice where you can argue whether each answer to each question is actually good or bad. And it engages the characters and it also engages the audience. So that's my issue with your main issue with your little statement. I think you're confusing questions with an
No,
actual
no, 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 no. I
dilemma.
was just saying that you say that that Romero's film don't any pose any question. That was my point. I was arguing against that. That
Right. So
you said that.
no, I said moral.
Okay,
I said Romero's film didn't have any moral dilemmas
okay,
because I did stay straight up. The news does talk about moral questions passively. I don't think that's very
yeah,
engaging. Um, Another issue I have mainly is earlier on in this segment, way earlier on, you talked about the dialogue not making sense.
yeah, yeah.
The dialogue of
No, no, I
Romero's,
didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say the dialogue not making
you're
sense. I
right. You
just
said
said that they're
it felt
very
too,
simplistic, simplistic,
yeah, very
simplistic
simplistic. My bad.
on the
They felt
remake,
like fictional
remake.
characters to you,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
how real people speak. Now,
The problem, yeah, that's my problem with the also the remake
now, I don't know about
is
you.
that they okay, okay.
I don't know about you, but the dialogue in Snyder's film is easily the most relatable dialogue. Period. People are actively cursing. People are talking about their hobbies. People are having actual reactions to the zombies that make sense. There's quips back and forth arguing, and it's not like when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. That sounds like a scripted line. It slaps. It hits hard. Okay, I'll give you
I
that.
know. I, yeah, yeah.
But CJ's entire rant when everybody says, "Hey, let's just leave the mall," and he's like, "Are y'all fucking stupid?" That was the most fucking real reaction out of any of the fucking movies. And Snyder's remake is filled with dialogue like that. So I think you just need to rewatch the movie.
I
Um,
didn't say that the dialogue is bad. I just said that the dialogue is simplistic. I the dialogue in Romero's version just feels a lot more better. They feel more polished, and
oh
yes,
no,
you could say that
it's campy as all hell. It is on the
I
nose.
disagree.
It is it's wooden,
The news
right?
segment, you
It's
could
not
say
how
that the
real
news segment,
people talk, and it takes more nuance to
the news
write how
segment that
people
was the
talk.
news segment. The news segment, yeah, they're definitely polished, but it's very believable because these are people probably speaking on a scripted note in their heads because these are characters on a TV because that's how people act like in TV because they act like they're sophisticated and stuff, you know.
Look, I'm saying is that the script writing and the dialogue in Romero's Dawn of the Dead
Yeah, on the
1970.
most of the characters. I'm saying that the characters themselves, not the talking heads on TV.
I'm talking about the characters.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about the
I
characters
thought you were
now.
talking about.
At this
I thought you
point,
were talking about the talking heads.
yeah,
I thought you were
the
talking.
characters in Romero, Peter, Francine, Stephen, Roger,
Okay,
they don't talk like people talk. They talk like scripted characters. Snyder's characters speak the dialogue. It's real. It's relatable. Anyone, any writer worth their salt knows the difficulty and the
I think that's
nuance
because of the
required.
performance.
I'm speaking. The nuance
Okay, okay, my
required
bad.
to actually create dialogue in a script that flows naturally. That is incredibly difficult. I actually think the dialogue in Snyder's film is superior. Now, does the original film have some real banger lines? Absolutely. There's some amazing quotes in the original film. In fact, some of them were brought up in the remake. And I'll always give the original that. But in terms of the quality of the dialogue, I don't feel there are many times in the original where it feels like I'm watching a fictional character. Whereas in the Snyder remake, I'm watching it and I'm hearing the dialogue. I'm like, yeah, that's a real fucking person going through a shitty time. To me, that's good
You're
writing.
arguing.
Yeah, to me, that's
I'll
just
go.
good writing. But that I
You're
think that's all I
arguing
have
that
to
the.
say.
Okay.
I mean, you
You
feel
said
free
though.
if you need to say anything about it.
You're arguing that from a performance standpoint. Yes, the
It's
performance
not just
elevates the
performance.
dialogue.
It's literally how the dialogue is written.
I don't think. Uh, I think it's the performance because they're very simplistic, whereas the
How does the
characters in
performance
Romero,
have anything to do with the dialogue on the screen? They had to learn
because
the
they
script,
speak the
unless the whole
dialogue,
script was ad libbed.
because they speak the dialogue, and they're executed very differently. The
It's
performance
the
does
very
matter on the
context of
dialogue.
the word. Normal people don't say when hell is filled, the dead will walk the earth. That's clearly a scripted line.
Yeah, you're arguing that realism is better on this the dialogue
From a
regarding the
writing
dialogue part.
perspective, when you're doing
Yeah,
dialogue,
yeah,
it is a
yeah,
lot harder to make natural sounding dialogue. Anybody worth their
yeah.
salt will tell you that.
I know that. I know that. I know that.
And that makes the remake's
No,
dialogue superior to me. Especially when we're talking about the original film, which everyone says has a lot to do with humanity, has a lot to say about humanity. Can't even get a script that speaks like humanity. Crazy.
I disagree on that because the most of that talking about humanity and stuff are mostly about they're mostly presented through the TV talking heads, as you say, and these people are very much sophisticated speakers, as you say,
It's
because
not
they're very
just
much
the
on TV.
talking heads on the news. I'm talking about the entire
Uh,
cast.
What do you mean? Char- Characters speak naturally.
Not
The
always.
way
There's
when
plenty of situations in the movie where it
yes, you can
feels like
say
Roger, Peter, Francine, Steven, it feels like they are scripted characters. I mean, that's part of the charm, right? I get that. I like it too. Don't get me wrong. I really like these characters.
uh,
But from a writing perspective, the fact that Snyder's dialogue, well, it's not really Snyder's, it's Gunn's dialogue. James
yeah, James
Gunn's
Gunn.
dialogue, the characters speak like real people, and the amount of talent that it takes to put that on paper, it cannot be undersold. Like your comment on the dialogue, I guess you just have a different subjective preference, but I'm speaking from somebody who went to an art school, and I got to tell you, anyone who can make dialogue sound naturally, that's going to give you the applause every time.
I just prefer the sophisticated style of dialogue like Aaron Sorkin.
And I don't blame you because some of that shit slaps. Like
Yeah, yeah,
you're not going to get a better quote than when hell is filled, the dead will walk the earth. That shit hits hard.
yeah.
That's why
And
they
that's
put
the
it in the
reason why I
remake.
consider them. And that's the reason why I think it's way better the dialogue. I mean,
I mean, at least we're in agreement. We both like the movie.
I, well, the remake, I don't hate that much. Yes, it has flaws, but it's also a very enjoyable film.
All right, well, I think we can move on because we got to do production quality. That'll be pretty quick. I guess now
Okay,
we
okay.
can finally get judges to score because I think we've reached a climax on this segment.
All right.
Not sure.
So this one's gonna be a little more difficult to score because this was a long segment. And we're basically compiling two together here. So I'm gonna break them down into the two parts because I just feel like that's easier. Um, in the initial section, I'm gonna be honest. I feel like Gold made a lot of good points and was able to argue them very well. I'm judging it based mostly on the amount of points that he made and that he was able to argue. If he gave an opinion, he was able to give an argument on why he has that opinion and why someone else would come to that same opinion. So for the first section of that, I'm going to give Gold a 9. Um, Now, for you, uh, Power Scale, you also did give a good amount of good opinions. However, a lot of time when you were giving those opinions, you would generally repeat yourself and just kind of ramble on and say the same thing again with just a little bit different wording. I get that you were trying to get that opinion across, but uh, you kind of just repeated yourself a little too much in doing it. But you did still have some good arguments there. So I'm gonna give you a 7 for that part. Um, the second half, um, this one's a lot harder. I feel like both sides um, gave a lot of opinions, um, but you also both gave a lot of good arguments on how you got to that opinion. Uh, so honestly, for both of these, I'm not going to break it down between the two. It was a rather long segment and would take a lot more time to go in depth on. I feel like who gave more here, so I'm going to give both of you an 8 for this one, and I'll pass that on to the other judges.
Alrighty. Now we got Mark and Sleepy.
Yeah, basically for the first part, I pretty much agree with what was just said. Basically word for word. Um, I think it was like I think like a lot of things were too uh restated, I would say, for the 1978 film. Um, and for the second part, um, I think like again, it's like a lot of it's opinion based, like up to personal interpretation. Like while I don't think writing itself is subjective because there's a very basic formulation of what makes writing good, the interpretation of writing and what it like makes this writing good writing is like obviously up to debate. Um but yeah, overall uh I'd like say like this was I'm more in favor of like giving probably go, probably like both of you guys like a probably like a 7 because this again this all really comes down to for this one opinions because I can see like the flaws and the pros with like both movies and how they present these specific topics. But yeah, this is kind of a hard thing to argue with or like get into. Normally, I wouldn't debate on writing, but if we have to, then yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I can't really give anything too complex.
That's fair enough. And Sleepy's got his scores down on the chat, which will be on the screen. So thank you for your scores, Sleepy. Um, the last segment's coming up. It's production quality. This is not going to be very long, I think. Do you want to lead on this one, Bill, or do you want me to start as always? I'll let you choose.
I'm starting first. Okay.
You're starting first on this.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Your 5 minutes starts.
Okay. The production quality. Yes, I do agree that the effects of the remake is pro is way better and superior than the original. That's because of the modern technology and better budget that Snyder had. However, I could say that the cinematography was way better in the original rather than the remake because the remake gives me it just makes me dizzy because of the shaky cam bullshit they tried. it was when Snyder started to use the cinematography just shows you with a lot of clarity, whereas in in the remake, there's a lot. The cinematography. The problem is when the action starts, you can't see much of the action because the camera just shakes a lot, and that's very much a problem. The editing, this also can attribute to the editing because the editing amplifies the shaky cam queasy nonsense that I hate. Yes, it worked for the 28 days later movie, but in the remake it just did not work because there will be slow mo's that Snyder likes to use. Then he goes for Paul Greengrass nonsense that nobody liked. And whereas in the original, you get to see the action a lot more clarity with a lot more clarity. You get to see these scenes and stuff. You get to see this shot very clearly. Whereas in the remake just, yeah, we cut that, we see that scene, yeah, we cut that, and there's not the space. You don't get the sense of space of what this place is, especially in the parking lot scene. Yeah, you don't know where the zombies are coming at, because of the camera just shoving around and editing going very fast, and like it's on the editing. It's just very disorienting to see every time I see the action. Whereas in the original, I get to see a lot more clarity. Yes, you could argue that the choreography of these action scenes are very clunky, but that's because of the budget. However, the that's with I'm talking about the cinematography and the editing, where it's not sped up and it's just you get have a lot more clarity with it. You get to see a fresh. You get to breathe the space a lot more, whereas in a remake, you don't get to see that. You don't see the space, the what this place really looks like. You also get this in the original. You can also appreciate the makeup, the designs of the zombies, the and the stuff, the details, the how they died. Whereas in the remake doesn't have that. The remake, you can't appreciate the zombie designs because the camera just whoop, you get to see that and boom, it's gone now, and the action is gonna get very funky again. That's my problem, and it's just very disorienting to see. Whereas in the original, you get the sense, you get there's also a lot of establishing shots in the original. You get the sense of the scale of the place, the location, stuff like that. Also, Romero's direction feels a lot more better than Snyder's. Snyder directed the remake like let's see, what is it called? A typical blockbuster, whereas George Romero directed the film like a passion project. He directed the scenes a lot more naturally. This makes the dialogue scenes a lot more executed, better executed. You, you don't see that quick editing stuff that Snyder did, even on dialogue scenes. What the heck, man? Why do I have to do that on the dialogue scenes? Even the dialogue scenes, you have to do the quick editing and stuff. And
You
that's
have 20
about it.
seconds left.
And what'd you say?
You have 20 seconds left.
Sorry, I'm done.
Okay. If that's all you have, then we'll pass it on to Gold. Your 5 minutes starts now.
10-4. So obviously this is not the fairest comparison in terms of production quality, kind of like the legacy argument. This segment doesn't really help out Romero, just like a legacy segment wouldn't help out Snyder. So I fully admit that right off the bat.
I thought the legacy round was
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
no longer doing that.
Yeah,
We're
no,
no
I'm,
longer
I'm I'm just saying like it's not a close competition in legacy, but it's not really a close
okay.
competition in production quality. Um,
Yeah,
like, but at the end of the day, this is ultimately a debate about which film is best. I think it's quite clear the
yeah,
remake has superior prosthetics. It has the advantage of computer generated graphics. has better filming equipment. Some of the camera angles are just far better due to the fact that they had a better budget and better technology. I mean, sure, Romero really pioneered the genre's practical effects, but I mean, again, I'll just point you back to that Model T analogy. Um, he pioneered it, but he's not the best in the game. By 2004, he wasn't the best in the game. Um, that being said, you mentioned the cinematography. Again, art kid
The
here.
editing, yeah, the editing and
Yeah,
editing,
yeah, art kid
the
here.
editing.
Part of me kind of got upset about that. For starters, it's very easy to see all the action when your zombies are moving in slow motion.
Yeah.
There's actually quite a
The Snyder cut.
few. There's quite a few clear scenes in Snyder's movie where you can clearly see the action. Like you could clearly see this guy's head get impaled by a freaking polo bat or whatever toy or sporting equipment uh, that Michael got out of the sporting goods store that he broke the stick and he
And
stuck
they
it
have
up the
like a
jaw.
highlight.
Yeah. Clearly, some of the action was shaky cam though, and I have to
Yep.
admit that some of the action was pretty shaky cam, but most of the action was actually easy to follow, especially the opening shot of the movie, the opening sequence where we see Anna wake up in the morning, and all of that easy to see, and the scale you get an entire panorama shot of the street of all
Yeah, I
hell
agree with that.
breaking loose. Um, and then, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm talking about Snyder's now, and we should be talking about Romero's, but fuck it, we're just gonna lump them in together because it's a short segment. Um,
Right.
I mean, why not, right? The title
Yeah,
sequence for Snyder's film is probably the best in the genre. The color grading of the movie was spot on.
I agree with that.
The soundtrack for the movie always fit, whereas not all the songs used or the tracks used in the original really fit. Like some of them did, some of them are great, so great that they were used in Shaun of
Opening
the
song.
Dead. But take for
Opening song.
example Johnny Cash's "The Man Comes Around," which is used in the opening title credit scene. Pitch perfect.
I
Ri-
agree with that. I agree with that.
Richard Cheese's "Down with the Sickness" during the
Mhm.
montage of everyone spending a month at the mall.
Yeah.
Excellent. Then there's the excellent Easter eggs in the movie where we get Ken Foree, we get the Galen Ross store, we get Tom Savani on the TV as a
Helicopter.
as
The
a
helicopter.
sheriff. We get the helicopter at the beginning, like you mentioned, and also you mentioned the cut the random cuts. I feel like some of Romero's
Uh,
work.
chaotic editing.
Well,
Chaotic editing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's very, yeah, they're trying to emulate the 28 days later editing
Well, not
style,
always.
obviously.
I'm trying to make my point here is that
Okay, okay.
Romero's film was filled with it wasn't always clear cut, right? Some of the cuts just made no fucking sense. Some of it was just random as fuck. I'll give you a very clear example of this. There's the scene where Roger and Peter are going down into the mall to get some supplies, and then Steve decides to join them. And in the middle of the action, we get a random cut.
Yeah.
We get a random cut to Francine doing fuck nothing, maybe farting. I don't know. Um, it doesn't serve the plot at all. And then within 2 seconds, it gets back to the action, right? And if you pay attention, the film has a couple moments like that that just kind of seem like terrible choices in cutting sequences. Now, obviously, a lot of that has to deal with the technology at the time because, back in the day, they actually had to cut film. It's not like in modern times where I could just open up Filmora and just play around with clips digitally. But I feel like that Romero's camera work, it was solid, but I think it's quite clear that Snyder's camera work was just the perfect camera work for a movie like Dawn of the Dead remake with fast zombies. Like there's a reason why every time you want to hire somebody to do something that looks aesthetically amazing, Zack Snyder's the name of the game. Writing a script, not really, but it's a good thing this movie wasn't written by him, it was written by James Gunn. But that's all I have to say about that.
All right, we'll go ahead and cut that here, and then you guys can go ahead and start your back and forth segment.
I don't know if there's much to say. I mean,
Okay.
you got anything to say?
Um, color grading and new remake. I do agree that the remake has good color grading, but you don't get to appreciate that because of the shaky cam nonsense and the chaotic editing they were trying to do. And yeah, I do agree that the soundtrack of the remake is definitely good, but I still prefer I think the original soundtrack of the original film is a lot better because it just gives that a fun feeling, and that adventurous and stuff. And when they were running up the mall, especially with the Goblin soundtrack, every time it plays, it just slaps. And compare, yes, I agree. Some of the remake songs is very good, especially the Johnny Cash song in the intro and Down with the Sickness. Yes, it's very good.
Yeah, again, I don't really see the shaky camera thing being a real problem because there's a ton of action in the movie that I can clearly see what's going on. But there are very
You don't get
there are
okay.
moments where it gets shaky. I'm not going to deny that. I think you're overplaying that bit a bit too much.
The parking lot scene.
You mean the one where they
This
go
this
where like I can clearly see the thing climbing on the pipes and the
no,
paraplegic
that not
zombie
that part, not that part. Zombies just knew how to sneak suddenly in the remake.
knew how to what?
That's my problem. That's my problem with the scene with that. The zombies just disappeared. Because you don't get the sense of space of what the parking lot there is. Were they hiding? You don't get that space
Or
with
where they're
the
coming from?
remake. Oh yeah, that's my problem. That's the cinematography it's just
It shows them
confusing where you
coming
get to
from a
see.
tree line.
Not what? Tree line?
There's a scene in the middle of the movie where they're on the rooftop painting the SOS on the
No,
rooftop, and they show you the
no, no.
zombies are coming from
I'm
a tree
talking
line.
about the parking lot where they're about to restart the generator. Oh, that's what I was talking about.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can clearly see
That's fair. That
they
was
came
very
from around a corner on the other side of the parking lot. You can clearly see when the
yeah.
paraplegic zombie's climbing like a monkey bar zombie. I can see that
No,
clear as day.
that's not my problem.
You can see Bart turn
That's
into
not my
a
problem. The
Happy
monkey
Meal
climbing
pretty
thing.
clearly.
That's not what I was talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. The monkey climbing scene of the zombie. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the zombies suddenly started appearing right behind them when they clearly went there. They just started moving everywhere in every direction, even though they were already they're already backwards on the entrance. How can the zombies go there? And that's
Well,
the partly because of the cinematography, because you don't get the sense of the scale of this parking lot. You don't see
why
the
would you? It's
face
an
of it, and
indoor
it's very good.
environment.
Yeah, yeah, but the problem is you don't the
That's like
it's
saying
for
I'm
an
going to get the
action
scale of
sequence.
a closet. It's a closet. It's going to be
Uh,
cramped.
Yeah, but that's a closet, not a parking lot. That parking lot was big, obviously, but the problem is you don't see the scale of that parking lot, and we see that zombies
So
can't
so
hide
so
in that space.
So
They can't hide
it was
because we've
pretty
seen
fucking
that.
dark in there. So clearly, we get the fake
Yeah.
out with the dog too. And I don't know if you've been in those type of parking spaces, but it's not uncommon for there to be multiple columns and for those columns to abstract the view of where the zombies could be coming from. They could be left, right, in front of you, and they could come around and it'll seem like they magically came up behind you. Just kind of just like how the dog snuck up on them. But I don't get this argument about the scale. What were you expecting a camera to be outside of the parking lot when it's an indoor
No,
parking lot, or
no. That's not my point. My point is that they should show what what location they're in and what's the distance and stuff. They unlike where you get in
so
Night
that's
of
a
the Living Dead, for
subjective
example.
claim then, I guess, because like I don't see the issue with it, and it certainly wasn't a shaky cam incident either.
It was a shaking cam incident because the camera was just moving
No,
left and
no,
right.
you could clearly see
It
the
was. It was.
paraplegic zombie fall on Bart. You can see Bart get turned
Oh,
into a Happy
that's
Meal.
not where
You
it
could see
goes.
the
Shaking
zombies go
cam.
to the fence and try to climb up the fence while they get shot by a shotgun. You can see the very
It's
clear
when the
slow motion
zombies are
shot
running.
of
That
a
was my
lighter
point.
lighting gas on fire. That's not shaky cam.
My point is when the zombies are started appearing. That's my point. Not the monkey climbing zombie.
When they started appearing, it
My
was quite
point is
clear. It was not shaky cam.
no, no. They just came. They just the camera just moves left and right, and you don't know where they're coming from.
They're coming from all over the place.
Yeah, which is my problem because we were making a lot of noise already, and how come the zombies just hid suddenly? That was my problem with it. The camera obviously it's just not very clear. There's not a lot of clarity on the location itself. And how big could it be? Because the zombies just come out of nowhere. It's just I don't know, man. It's just zombies. The zombies are hiding so suddenly. Very good on that scene.
Yeah, it's
They
almost
were
like they're
making a lot of
intelligent.
noise. Yeah, even though that's very inconsistent
Yeah.
because the zombies aren't very that smart on the remake.
Yeah, and so they were in the original as well. Some of them hid like a mannequin, and some just went over the rail like an idiot.
Yeah, that's the point of the Romero lore. If I use the Romero lore, but I can't use it here.
Well, I think it's quite clear the production quality is better with the Snyder film. I think it's I don't see the shaky cam. I see it in some. I could see it in some instances, but I've never had an issue following any of the action in that film. And you're coming from a guy who hates Taken 2 because Taken 2 was a real example of shaky cam. Taken 2, god damn. That was shaky cam.
Born movies, Born movies as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've got nothing else to say. Do you guys want to wrap this up and before we so we can get to our closing statements?
Yeah, yeah. If there's nothing more to add from either side, then I'll go ahead. I'm
Oh
gonna
wait, wait,
judge
wait.
this.
Oh, wait, you got another
Wait. I gotta say.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I
go
also
ahead.
gotta say that the cinematography showcases a lot of the Monreeville Mall. You know what location it's in, whereas cinematography in the remake didn't do that. It didn't do a lot of favors because of the rapid editing style and the cinematography, the camera focusing on the characters rather than the space and geological base of the location it's set in.
It's almost as if the
That's it.
Snyder film was more character focused than people give it credit.
Yep. But I still think that the characters are still superior
But
in the
let's
original.
you got anything else to say? I think we're good.
Sure. I got
All
some.
right.
I got nothing.
So although these were two segments, these were two very short segments, so I'm going to judge them as one. Again, I'm going to reiterate I'm not judging on the argument itself of what it is, of what is better and what isn't better. I'm judging on how well both arguments were presented. Um, so overall, for gold, uh, honestly, I'm gonna have to give him an 8 for this one. I feel like his argument was pretty solid, despite the fact that it was a mismatch. He said that from the start, um, but his reasonings for his arguments, I feel like were pretty solid. So I'm gonna give him an 8 for that. Um, for you, power scale. Again, I understand that this was a mismatch due to the time difference in which these movies were released. Um, there's not much you could argue on. Uh, However, I feel like what you did argue on, you did it well. Aside from again, you kind of just repeated yourself a few times with the same thing, maybe
Bet
reworded
on
a
that.
little different to try to get your point across. Um, so again, I'm gonna have to give you a 7 on this one, and then I'll pass it on to the other judges.
So Sleepy and Mark.
Um, I mean, yeah. So again, these were like two short segments, so really they should just like be counted as one. But yeah, I thought like for the sake of arguments, like both sides made pretty good points, but again, like there was a lot of opinion based logic. Like me personally, I can't really um like remember anything like meaningful about like the 1978's like cinematography or like the camera work or anything like that when that was brought up. And the same thing with 2004. Like I don't remember that too much. I do remember it being like very intense as a kid, like very in your face. Um, but also like the stairwell scene, I kind of remember that where it's like it does slow down when the time calls for it. So I like, yeah, I can appreciate like something like that. But yeah, overall, I thought I'd give Gold a 8. Vil, I'd give you a 7. Like pretty standard, I'd say.
All right, and Sleepy says we should throw the segment because of mismatch 26-year difference. I disagree because some old movies are better than new ones. T2 is a good example of that. The rest of this franchise could learn from that. But do you have a score, or do
That's
you
fired.
just want to uh just not give a score, Sleepy? I mean, can we all
Exciting,
agree though?
exciting.
T2 is the best Terminator. Like, can we all agree on that at least?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. See.
Me too.
Okay, same score. All right. I guess we'll just move into our closing statements. Closing statements will not be scored. After the closing statements, we can then come to a conclusion as to who y'all thought won the debate, and then when the video gets published, the comment section will figure that out. Um, do you want to give your closing statement first, or do you want me to go again first, or what do you want, Phil?
You go first. You go first.
I'll go first. Okay, so I have a pre-written closing statement because I'm lazy. Um, no time needed for this. This will be quick. Um, Romero's film, in my eyes, is praised more because of nostalgia in the sense that either you were raised with it or you saw it at the time. It's also praised primarily because of the reverence people have for the OG king of zombies himself, George Romero. And who could blame y'all? He is the godfather of the genre. We wouldn't be having any of these movies if he didn't do what he did. But it's also a lot of the praise that this film gets is because of the pedestal on which the original Of the Dead trilogy has been placed on by fans. A pedestal that is so absurdly high that the films are treated with near religious significance. So to speak ill of them is branded as blasphemy. You know, it forces critics to appease the fanboys rather than actually examine the films with any real critical honesty. Like, it's so blatantly obvious to me that the remake, when you get rid of legacy, when you get rid of the impact that these films had, you get rid of all that fluff. If you just look at them as films, it's clear the remake is better. You have better zombies, arguably better characters, arguably better plot that actually has moral dilemmas in it instead of just platitudes and messages that the creator wants to hammer into your face. The production quality is far superior. And I mean, just look at what happened to when Romero tried to compete in the same exact modern era, the early 2000s. He just couldn't do it. He didn't involve as a director. And, I'm saying this as someone who loved Land of the Dead. He had a bigger budget with that movie than he ever had in his other films. It wasn't as good as Snyder's Dawn or Garland and Boyle's 28 Days Later. Hell, it wasn't even as good as 28 Weeks Later.
Are you
Once
talking
you
about land?
Yeah, and the box
Okay, okay, okay.
office and ratings prove this. See, once you remove the nostalgia and the legacy, and I dare say some of the intellectual or pseudo intellectual adoration of the films, which sure created the genre we all love, but were honestly not that great. I mean, I think we can easily see just how well Romero's original work holds up. And it holds up just about as good as Land did. As in, nobody's paying to watch Romero anymore, at least not most zombie fans. And that's because the genre has evolved and the competition has just gotten too big for him and his style of zombies. I mean, again, some of y'all might not want to hear that, but it's basic classic big fish in a small pond gets put into the ocean. He's now at the bottom of the food chain, boys. And that's how I feel about the original. The remake is, to me, superior. Although the original is still a great film and I respect it very greatly for what it did. But, what the fuck would I know? I'm just a Golden Captain dude on YouTube. I'm done.
Okay, regarding the remake and the original, I say the remake is a solid film on its own. With if try not to compare it to the original film, yes, it's very entertaining, but it lost that identity that the original had. It lost a lot of the subtext. It focused more on action and the than the subtext that Romero was trying to say. And also the characters are also very inferior. Yes, good. Captain Gold made a lot of points that yes, the remake does have some merits. The characters of the remake does have merits to them. However, I still think that the original characters were way better because of the way they're written, and yes, they're also a lot a lot more fleshed out and nuanced when compared to the remake. Yes, Captain Gold makes the statement that yes, there's not the nostalgia factor. The nostalgia factor on that. Yes, there's a nostalgia factor on the one arguing on the original, but I still disagree on that. That all my valid arguments will be disproven just because of my nostalgia. But because my point still stands on that, even though I'm not very good at explaining myself on here because English is not my first language. Also, the Dawn of the Dead original was also had way more fun, and you get to spend a lot more characters, whereas in the remake, it's a lot more cynical because the characters end up are very much implied to be dead when they get to the another island. In the original, you don't get that. The original implies hope in the end, even though if you s- even though the rest of the outbreak goes on. If you include the entire Romero lore, yes, mankind might be cooked on that. So yeah, the film on its own is still very much better, in my opinion. The original film, I mean, than the remake. Yes, I'm not saying the remake is a total garbage or whatever. I just think it's a hollow it's a hollow remake in my opinion. But if I judge it on as without comparing it to the original, yes, it's a solid zombie film. It's a solid action film. Even despite my gripes with it, yes, I still think the original is better. That's all.
Okie dokie. So now we turn it to the judges. Um, do you want to go first or?
So we're not really scoring conclusion. We're just kind of giving our overall opinions, I guess, on
Who won, basically?
who we think won. Mine is based solely on who I think gave a better argument. It's not so much on the topics of the argument. So as I've said before, I feel like Gold backed a lot of his opinionated statements with a lot more actual facts from the movies that he was referencing. Um, I also feel like he really didn't repeat himself unless it was in response to a question. In which case, if he repeated himself, it would be to reword that that statement in order for it to be better understood by his opponent. Um, for power scale, I feel like he did do a very solid job of making his argument for the movie as a whole. His argument for the zombie section specifically was probably his weakest argument. Um, and overall, the weakest part of his all his arguments was generally just tending to repeat himself over and over when trying to make a point. Um, so I do, in my opinion, have to give this one to Gold, and I will pass that on to the other judges.
All right, Mark and Sleep, you're up.
Yeah, I think that like overall, again because I have my own opinion on like what film is better and whatnot, but like comparing like the arguments themselves, um, presentation wise, point wise, other things like that, I'd say yeah, like Gold definitely gave like the better arguments, even if I don't entirely agree with them. That's not really the point. The point is the argument themselves and how they're presented and the articulate nature of them. So yeah, I'd say like overall that would be Gold.
And now we just have to wait for Sleepy. Now, I just want to say off the bat, me and Vil got into this debate because I thought he was just a normal dipshit commenter on my videos. And, we challenged each other to a debate. We started talking, and, I got to say, I admire anybody who's willing to actually have a real debate with somebody. Takes a lot of balls to do that shit. So.